Hey everyone, welcome to Pop XP. And before the show starts, make sure to click that subscribe button and click the bell to get notifications when we go live and we upload awesome new content. And don't forget, if you can, make sure to share our stream on all your social media outlets. We appreciate it, and thanks for helping us grow the Pop XP channel. What is going on YouTube? It's the brain of the mainframe here now, Scout with the Pop XP, and joining me as always, the man that's never going to grow up. He's got the fountain of youth flowing through his veins, Mr. Teen Sensation Billy Tucci,
if I may,
and Dr. Blevins, aka Mr. Unboxings, is in the house.
Doctor Unboxing.
Doctor
Unboxing.
Not a doctor.
Well,
dude, how great is this show going to be?
Depends on what you're
doing. My box is sick. I'm like, what?
Boys, how great is this show going to be with a hero?
Oh man,
with an inspiration and a hero, legend.
I know. I always get the goose
comic
pimples.
book artist of all time.
I have to wear a sweatshirt, a hooded sweatshirt, just to hide the goosebumps I get, you know, and the hair's standing, you know,
the goose
pimples. So how are you gentlemen doing this evening?
Great. Busy. As you can see, I'll show you. Doing a major winter cleanup. Look at that.
Oh, look at that.
Wow.
All get thrown out.
Wow.
So I've been doing that. I've been
busy,
nutty busy. I got my brother Isaac Snowden is coming tomorrow.
Is Isaac coming?
Yes, coming for 4 days.
Is he going to Garden State?
I don't know.
Is Mr. Isaac going? Does he attend that one?
If he does, he's crashing with me. So I don't know if, I guess I don't know where you would plan on staying, but it depends.
Oh, I'm not. Well, Dave, I can just lay across the foot of the bed. I'll keep you guys toesies more. You know?
God. Not again.
Oh, again.
Let's get this. Let's do this, man. We got
Speaking of keeping your toes warm.
One of the greatest comic creators of all time on. One of the best draftsmen, storytellers. Completely insanely inspired me. And millions, well, not millions, I guess. Well, maybe.
Oh, millions.
Yeah. What would you say? Millions have been in awe of his work. And he's inspired thousands to become comic or want to become comic artists, right?
Yeah, just a bunch of wannabes, Billy.
No. You know what? Hey, it ain't easy.
It's not easy
to do it.
It's not easy.
We can ask the man himself.
Just think about it. Millions and millions of minds he has fueled with his imagination. Isn't that just incredible?
It's crazy. And inspired.
When it comes to comics, like he's going to live forever in comics. I mean, it's crazy to think about.
Let me tell you something. Where this guy lives and where he's at right now, man, he's gonna live forever himself. Because you got to see how the great Whilce Portacio lives. You got to see it where he's living, where he is right now.
Got to see it to believe it.
Wild man.
Do you think they believe it? Do they believe it? Everyone, please welcome Whilce Portacio. Will, hey. Welcome back.
Can you hear the echo?
We need like, I'm going to find that and just play that. I'm going to find that on YouTube. Whilce, I got to tell you, when I met you, you're a handsome young man back in '94, but you look way cooler today. You look better today than you look back then. Not that you look bad, but you look like a samurai or something. You look freaking awesome. Look at it. Look at the flow going.
Well, actually, it's COVID hair. I've never grown my hair beyond 3 inches, but when COVID started, I go, okay, let's see how long this will last.
Do you have a goal in mind? Are you going for a specific length?
Well, this I guess is my optimum length. Mm-hmm. I just had 4 inches cut off yesterday.
Oh, wow.
And that gets kind of unwieldy. I'm like in the shower like a girl for like 10 hours every time I.
Oh, you got the conditioner and all, and then you
gotta, for real information, you got to shampoo this, then get down to the middle, and then you got to pull up this, and then put it on top, and then shampoo that, and then you got to let it come down, and then you got to trickle the water down until it gets all it.
Then you got the gel, the mousse,
it's
the blow
experience.
dryer.
It's an experience. Like,
Yeah, but see, I've got like monkeys and turtles and rabbits out here that do it for me. I just sit back with some coffee.
Great. So great.
Yeah,
The
how do you
monkeys
get
are working in
Wi-Fi in the
gym
middle
too.
of the woods? That's what I want to know. How you get internets in the middle of the woods?
Well, pretty
Starlink.
soon now, with if they ever get this metaverse thing off the ground in the next 5 years, this is going to be everybody's reality, eh?
Yeah.
Whatever we want.
Whatever we want. Well, Whilce, man, it's been a while. You guys were probably on the show, probably almost a year ago, I would say, at this point. So what's new? What's been going on? I mean, obviously, we're going to talk about a couple things tonight. The X-Men Legends #5 that came out recently. We want to talk a little bit about your work on the Marvel Snap game, which was Game of the Year last year, mobile gaming. So, but I'd love to just kind of catch up, man. How has the past almost 10 months, I think, since you guys been on the show last? How's everything been going for you?
Well, it's kind of interesting. I mean, there's two quick little things there. While most of everybody was going stir crazy, right, Billy? For us old bat cave people, it was like been there, done that.
The old guard. Yeah, it was like another day.
And for some reason, I don't know, Billy, you might know more better than I. It seemed busier.
Way busier. I've had, personally between us, I've had the best 2 years we've had in like 23 years. Since like 2000, really, it's been the best years we've had these past couple of years. It's great.
Yeah, and we're not,
too. So I'm I got a chance now to actually publish and bring She back. So
cool.
It's been a great 2 years. It's been phenomenal, and I'm totally re-energized. And because I don't know if you remember, that's how I broke in, self-publishing, and it was it's a dream. It's a dream. Got my boys here, my partners here, producer O'Brien Blevins right there. So it's been great. It's been a really great time, and again with Whilce, remember how isolated we live, and you need that quiet to actually work.
Yeah.
It got a lot more done. Less distractions, I guess, less conventions and crap like that.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure we've never talked about you and I, but I'm pretty sure we mirror each other there, where we mirror a lot of quote unquote other visible artists, like Norman Rockwell and those guys, where I'm fortunate. My wife handles everything. Because a solution for a story or a design or an idea for something, it could come any time in the day.
Yeah.
Shout out to Joe.
You can't say, okay, here's just pause. You're out with your kids, you're out with your wife, you're doing something important with your parents or something. You're still thinking. You're always thinking. And that solution, when it comes and you got to be ready for it. And so we need other halves that, will not, so that we don't have to worry about the stupid bills and argue with the dentists and, and so I knock on wood, I'm real lucky there. And I think that's one of the real big secrets that I'm not sure a lot of the youngins know about,
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been, also thank goodness we had the internet, because, you do, that we can chat with each other like this and hanging out. And, Blevins, I talk to you almost every day, right? And we stream. Yeah. When was the last time we saw each other?
The last time we saw each other was when I came to Wizards World and we saw each other in person. That's the only time.
And what year is that?
That I've ever seen you.
Yeah, but
God, 2008.
Yes, yeah, so
yeah,
he's one of my best friends,
Yeah.
So this is cool. And to use it in a positive light, actually, as opposed to all the negativity that's out there and people doing that. But so it's been I don't know. I not much has changed, and I'm getting a lot more work done because there's less distractions.
Yeah, it's it is great to be able to have this technology and be able to use it. And I think it's getting the word out a lot more than, maybe even almost more than conventions did. I think the COVID time period where they didn't have the conventions, although they are necessary and everybody loves them, I think it kind of exposed how much they really were required in the realm of dealing with this.
Yeah. I mean, remember Whilce, remember what we had? We had, Wizard Magazine.
Yeah.
That's where you got your news previews, Comic Buyer's Guide, like a few of those books, Combo Magazine, Comics Value Monthly. That's where you got all your news from.
Yeah.
Remember, and
Hero
you think about it.
Hero Illustrated.
Yeah. That lasted like 2 issues, right? That book lasted like only 2 issues though.
Yeah. Crazy.
So,
Yeah,
I love
for
those
me, one of
things.
the, being a tech geek from way back, I got my first computer 1988, 89.
oh wow.
It was you guys probably haven't heard this. It was an Amiga 2000. It was the very
absolutely.
first machine that you could do ray tracing.
Cool.
What's that? What's ray trace? What's that?
That's 3D, because what happens? It's actually literally what the computer program does. It has basically a virtual camera, and then you put your model here in virtual space, and it shoots basically like a laser, and then traces it back to see, oh, okay, it's over there. So and it looks like a cockpit. So then it knows how to make a cockpit and stuff like that.
Really?
It was only a green laser, right? It was only green laser. Is that right? The color was only green. It didn't really have.
No. Here's the freakiest part about it. Okay, our screens right here, right? They got scan lines. You remember that word?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's like, I don't know, a couple hundred scan lines going horizontal here.
Yeah.
You press F12 for it to render, and this is full ray trace, so it takes time. It takes like back then it took like a couple hours sometimes. Like I love doing military vehicles. My favorite fighter is the Falcon, the F-16.
Oh, yeah, I love that. I love the F-16.
I unfortunately, because I love it, so I made it with a full payload of missiles underneath, and that almost like blew up my computer.
Wow.
But the interesting thing was when you press F12 to make it render, the screen went blank, and then one by one, like 30 seconds per scan line, it would come in. So you're like waiting, you're like, okay, 30 minutes, and there's like 100 scan lines only, but it's only like a fourth or a fifth of the screen, and you're going, that looks like the cowl, and there's the intake, and oh shit, I forgot to change the color of the intake of it. It's this psychedelic purple. Oh no, it's supposed to be, gunmetal gray, and then you got to go cancel, and then you got to go change it, and then boom again, F12, 30 minutes later, and only, but it was so new. It was like, being in the Enterprise, it's like, whoa.
But you only had like 16-bit colors though, right?
Well, see, back then, which is why this is a little geeky, so which is why I got the Amiga, because Mac had already come out, and the PCs already came out too, but both of them were limited in color because everybody really just used it for text and stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Or writing stuff. But the Amiga actually had this board in it, which gave me like millions of colors, And so it was one of the very first ones to do that. But then, as everybody now knows, because we're now educated about business and stuff, well, Apple had a lot of money, Gates had a lot of money, and so they were able to push this Star Trek far-feature advanced machine, the Amiga, in the background. Because you guys know what the original Mac looked like, right? That little cube,
yeah.
And no extra punch, right? Everything was just there, a little slot for the disk drive and stuff. Well, the Amiga 2000 had a monitor, a CPU, 4 extra slots, so you can put in like the million colors thing in there and other things, 2 drives for floppies, and you got 1 extra drive with a hard drive, but there was also another extra drive where you could buy another hard drive. It was a future, what we now know as a computer, and it was the first one to do it. But they didn't have the backing that, Apple and Windows had, and nobody remembers them anymore.
That's awesome.
How much do you think one of those machines are worth today? Like, is there the nostalgia aspects of it, that people want it?
Well, okay, you've seen like you guys are probably like Nintendo people too, right? And Atari, you're probably maybe Atari people too.
Yeah.
Well, you guys then know, right? That hardware there, even though it was state of the art back then, that can fit on a floppy. So now everybody, you've seen the little Nintendo Mini thing. I mean, it's just it's just a little plastic housing, but replicating what it used to look like, but miniaturized, because you don't need much power.
Yeah.
And RAM space to run it.
You can run it off a USB cable now.
Yeah. So basically, that's what they've done with the Amiga. But I wish they, I don't want to bore you guys too much, but I wish they had the money to continue, because one other thing that was great for that time, because they had the graphics, they had the best new games of everybody. So they had the higher end, bigger bloated software. And so one of the cool things, it's called multi-threading right now, was you could buy multiple CPUs to make it run faster and longer. But what was cool is I could type in and go, okay, CPU 1 and 2, I want you to just render my 3D renders. And CPU number 3, I want to use you to play my game and just play, you just do my game. You could actually tell the insides of the computer do exactly what you want.
Oh, wow.
Nowadays, you've got to lay the low.
Cores. Yeah, break down all the different cores. You know what's crazy? I only say this because I'm a retro video game fanatic. But the Amiga, they came out with an Amiga Mini, kind of like the Nintendo Mini. It was an A500.
Yeah,
it's like a full keyboard, but it's a mini computer where you can play all those games and stuff like that.
Well, which is funny because, see, I got the 2000 and then came to 2500 and came to 3000. The 500 was the mini version.
Right.
So it's kind of funny that in modern times they made a mini version of that.
A mini.
But to bring it back to comics, because of that, that's where, like, when I met Brian Haberlin, the Top Cow tech geek, we instantly go, oh, look, there's this new bloated but slow software called Photoshop. And maybe we could use that to color comics. And we were the only geeks in the whole tribe.
Is that true?
Yeah. You remember All the Optics?
Yes.
Okay. So John Nee was our office manager always. Okay. And at the time he had a Mac store. So it was easy, right? He'll bring in some Macs and then we'll try this color thing. And he was the one who suggested Photoshop, right? Now, before that, this is how geeky we were. At the very beginning of Image, we all then made a road trip to All the Optics so that he could explain to us. Remember, he was doing Akira. That was the really beginning of digital. But see, we would go there and it was like, he goes, okay, now I'm going to do this graduation of a sunset in the background. And then he goes, I'm going to use color Y4B R2. He would, it was like total real geek stuff. He would type in numbers for a certain color that he memorized. And I wanted to graduate 50% over a 2.5, intervals, and then gradually go to color Y50, and it was amazing because nobody else was doing it. And we were the first ones looking at Photoshop, but we go, we're never going to get out of production if we did it that way.
Right.
And so me and Brian goes, okay, this thing is slow. Photoshop, it's really new. Nobody's using it. But let's try to figure it out. And fortunately, we were geek enough, and, we were all young and dumb. We hadn't, we weren't going to the parties, the football games, the disco and stuff, so we had the time. If it's going to take 48 hours, yeah, sure. 48 hours straight. Do it. No problem. This is kind of fun.
Okay. So when were you coloring, like, say, Wetworks? Because I'm sure you didn't have time to color the Marvel work. But did you color any of your Marvel covers, or did you color any of the wet work covers? I have all the books; they're just all packed away. But I didn't know that you were you coloring your work as well?
Yeah, but only with the image stuff. Because you got to remember, one of the impetus for us going off and doing it on ourselves was, as you all know, especially you, Billy, you know, because you publish, it's actually not that complicated, right? The most slow, hard part is just to actually do the work, right?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's easy to hire somebody to scan it. There's now pipelines and procedures and stuff. And then just as long as you send the file to Cubicore, you know, they can now do cut negatives. John Nee's sister, Clydine, who runs the Artist Alley at San Diego Con, she had a negative cutter company. So John figured out that the file, you could hook up a computer to her negative cutter and it could send the file and the negative cutter could understand it. So we saved cost again there, right?
Yeah.
Because so we didn't have to pay somebody outside and pay their exorbitant rate to get a negative. And just as long as we send a negative, I don't know if you know this, Billy, guess what? Okay, so here we are with, okay, now 200 million colors, right?
Yeah.
And you know that before that, it was the cutout, you know, flat, you know, what? I forget how many colors, maybe 4,000 colors or something like that. So it was a print palette that you had to use, right? That's why the YRB and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah.
So everything was set and they had to be cut. And so we all always considered our comics, as much as we love the paper stuff, as low res, right? You know, we kind of always wish. So when we got into this Photoshop thing, go, oh, wow, the promise, right? We could use multiplied colors and have real graduations and stuff like that. And so we finally got through that, Brian and I, and we finally got the file and Clydine hit it. And then we sent it to Cubicore and we called up and we go, you know, with fingers crossed, okay, Cubicore, okay, here's a high-res file. This is what we'd like to do. This is what we think the future of comics is going to do. Now, how much is it going to cost us? Right. And we were going, oh shit, you know, and Cubicore gave us a real life lesson. They go, well, you know, you've seen those printers, right? You know, and you've seen the movies like Citizen Kane, you know, running, you know, this huge newspaper. Hey, they're huge. They cost hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
Well, no printer is going to buy a low-res $100,000 printer and a high-res. It's all just high-res. It's all depending on what negative you give it. So even though we were low-res, quote unquote, we were getting the Time magazine rate. So we got it for free, basically.
Jeez.
We were already paying the rate. As long as we gave them a high-res neg, boom, we got it. You know, so as you know, everything is back end. So we basically were printing money. You know, there was no out-of-pocket cost at all.
It was
wow, that's incredible.
Times were insane.
Yeah, that is.
But see, we benefited from, because we consciously were trying this. Oh, okay, we moved over from Marvel. We're doing our own, and we're just young punks. Everybody, Marvel and everybody's going, oh, these are young punks. They're going to fall on their faces. But our book, Todd's book comes out, and whoa, state of the art. What the hell is this?
Yeah.
This is the future. And it didn't cost us anything.
That's crazy.
For some reason,
I mean, how many copies did Spawn sell?
3 million.
I never dived, believe it or not, I never dived into any of the numbers. I'm just George Lucas. You remember Zoetrope, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
I was George Lucas. Remember, George Lucas was, oh yeah, George is going to build the studio for everybody because he's the tech guy. That's where me and Brian lived. We just wanted to go further and further. I mean, even from the very beginning, we wanted to bring in 3D models and 3D, you know, different techniques and stuff. And that's where we were happy. I mean, like there was this game back then. It was a really cool game called, was it called Myth or Riven or something like that? It had all these videos You know,
that was
you would go to reach and
handwritten.
open the door, and then a video would come on and open the door and stuff. So back then, even though it was cool because it was new and everybody waited for the load up times for any video. You know, everybody loved it. But see, me and Brian, because we were geeks, we go, you know, we've got really big hard drives here. And so we copied the whole game onto our hard drive. So now there was less nano weight states. And so we got to actually play the game faster than anybody else. And that was the kind of geeks me and Brian were, you know. In fact, I remember the original books. We actually, to get to Clydeen, because she was like about 10, 20 miles away from the studio, we would actually get into the computer and then pull out the hard drive and then drive the hard drive to her and then hook that up to her negative. Okay. So we're like, you know, driving slow, we're avoiding telephone lines and power stations. But see, again, it was that, you know, and I'm sure all of you can relate. You know, when you're young and dumb and you don't know the limitations, it's like, fuck that. Yeah, we want the shining prize, and whatever it takes, we'll do it.
Yeah.
And that's really what we did at Image. We didn't care. We just go, kids are coming up and they've got Jim and I's, you know, X-Men drawings on their t-shirts, and they're 10 different t-shirts. And then Marvel didn't tell us about this, and we call it Marvel. Marvel didn't know about this, you know, and then we're seeing posters, and kids are asking us for the animation, for the posters, for cards, for toys and stuff. And we go to Marvel and say, look, everybody's hungry. You know, we should take cues from George Lucas. Remember his film deal, right? He said, screw my director's fee. I want ancillary rights. I want to make the toys and make the money off of there, because that's what the kids want. We go, yeah. And that's the real reason that we wanted to set up Image, was we didn't want to go through all the, you know, the levels of approval. You know, we could see what everybody wanted. We were not that far from you guys in age. And then we had Carl, who was of age, you know, so we knew exactly what the market wanted. But Marvel goes, I mean, like, can you believe that, with posters even? And they used to do posters. They go, we did that before, but you know, it's too much of a hassle.
That was and you still go through. I still did that, you know, in, you know, working for, you know, DC, that people wanted these things. Like, I don't know. Yeah, it's like, get it now, do it now. People want it now. Put in previews now. Let's put it on your website.
That's exactly how Billy was too to them, I'm sure. Do it now, get it now. Come on, now. Everyone wants it. Come on, Jerry.
I'm standing here in the street with a guy who wants it right now.
Well, see, that's kind of like the sign of the smell of the times, because you could smell that. You can smell that anticipation. Remember, we came off of the 70s where, you know, Blevins, you know, as a collector, that in the 70s, there was this period of, it's just talkie comics, you know, and it's partly because, you know, Uncle Neil, you know, did those social, comics of Green Lantern stuff, which were really cool. But then everybody started doing these just talkie stuff. And so the 70s slowed down for everybody. And then so I guess that made this hole, so that when you guys, the kids, came in, it was like, I want to get excited about this, because hell, I got to wait 30 days in between, man. You know, make it worth it. You know, and you know, we could just smell that, being kids ourselves, basically. You know, and nobody was doing it, and that's the whole thing about business. You know, it's just finding that hole. I mean, Kirkman was a great example. I mean, you know, because of George Romero, there were zombie movies all over the place, and they were B movies and stuff. And Robert goes, what if we did this way? And everybody conventionally were thinking, you know, I don't know, zombies don't make money, but boom, look at where he is right now. You know, and it just takes that. That's the real whole skill. It's connecting to your audience. You know, I mean, I always tell everybody that, you know, as much as I love like Elvis Presley, You go 10 years in the 40s, and he would have been locked up. He would have been, tamped down.
Yeah.
He comes out in the 60s after the Beatles comes out, and he's like, what the hell's this old fashioned stuff, man? But he comes out when the audience is just like hungry. They're hearing all this black music. They're hearing all this R&B. They're hearing all this blues. But, I don't want to get into politics. We were America, and we wanted to see. I mean, we had Pat Boone. Remember him, Billy?
Yeah, man.
Trying to do a womp, ball, a loo, bump, a bump, bam, but giving it that waltz time, And then Elvis comes out and he does it. He does what everybody is. What's that new sound we've been hearing, And it took an Elvis to really open the doors for everything. And now look, everything is all about that.
Yeah.
Everything is all about that. It's about getting your finger on that pulse. And because again, you could have figured out the Elvis thing in another time, but if the audience wasn't there, the audience isn't there.
Mm-hmm.
That's the hardest thing to teach the young creators, because they want to, they want perfection. They want, okay, I create this and everybody's going to love this because Billy sells. So why can't I, but it's all about timing. It's all about hitting that chord. It's all about listening to that's the beauty of Stan. He understood that people wanted to really relate and connect to the heroes.
Yeah.
Before that, remember, it was there were only two stereotypes. It was, the Superman. I'm perfect. I am the epitome of
Boy Scout.
Yeah, what an adult is supposed to be. And then you get Batman. Well, I'm the outlaw, and we've got this huge outlaw history. I mean, it's like, of course, Batman would connect with America because that's what it took to get brave enough to get into the West, to figure it out. It wasn't the end of the world, and that there might be something else there, and that we have a bigger country here. We have more space to explore and stuff. And so I think maybe in the back of Miller's mind, when then, later on he goes, what if Batman became a aging, demented, frustrated Sean Connery, and we called him Dark Knight? That's really an extension of the Western mythos. It's just, I mean, because I remember I'm a John Ford fan, and I remember one of John Wayne's last movies, because John Ford used, when a good director finds an actor that can embody all his ideals, he keeps them going. And I remember The Shootist, late in his career. In fact, it might even be his last movie, where he's one of the guys that beat the odds. He's a gunfighter, but he survives into his old age. And he's in his old age, and he's still the rootin' tootin' guy, but his edges are shined off a little bit. He now has a different perspective, and it's cool because they bring another character who's a young guy who wants to be the guy that takes out John Wayne, and stuff. But my point there is that was John Ford's way of doing Dark Knight, is taking that Batman original character and where is that going to end up? And that told me a lot about storytelling, that, you don't have to be stuck where you started, which is, I don't know if you guys want to go into it, but I've got a lot.
No, this is great, dude. This is awesome. This is like a tutorial.
Well, it might be a little bit of Debbie Downer, but I've got a lot of reservations of where storytelling is going today, because as you guys know, let's see if I could. Okay, we all love Star Wars, right?
Yeah,
of course.
But the vast majority of the community hates George Lucas, right? We love Game of Thrones, especially with that first episode. Wow, a series where the the head honcho king guy dies. Whoa, what? This is like a real representation of what it really was like in the medieval period, right? And then when we fell in love with the characters and George killed them, what the fuck you doing? What the hell? You know, and so now producers are really shocked. I mean, shell shocked in that when that started happening with Game of Thrones and George started getting hit because of that, I started getting kind of scared of wanting to write a new IP and it becoming popular, because then I'm going to have to let it go, because the fans are going to force me not to do my original intent, because they're going to have their own intent. And the reason I go into that is that you see that in a lot of Hollywood writing now. I think the Koreans and the Chinese are really lapping us now in writing. I mean, just do this. Go on to Netflix, right? And the synopsis, as everybody knows that writes, you were taught tagline, right? And be short and skirt that so that the imagination could run of what you could think this is going to happen. But you go to quote unquote Hollywood movies, and byline it's father goes into the forest and then meets somebody from his past. It's like,
yeah, you know, unfortunately, I think a lot of things that's going on in Hollywood, and I have a lot of friends, really close friends that are screenwriters, and they're not hiring people on talent anymore. They're hiring them on not what they can do, but who they are. Yeah. And what they look like, unfortunately. And there's a lot of people that just aren't and they're getting jobs and they're making so much money. But these movies they're writing, or television shows, or video games, even if you read a bad script for a video game, but they're bombing and people aren't buying their stuff. Just like in comics, there's a lot of people in mainstream comics doing the same thing, getting all this work. You know, they're firing, not necessarily firing, they're just refusing to hire, or there's no work for these established creators who these geniuses, these people that have changed the world, changed the face of comics. Yeah. You know, they're but to give someone a social experiment, to hire someone. Yeah. I don't hear what people says, but everyone's saying it. I'm saying it out loud. Everybody in comics is saying it. Yeah. So. Everybody,
the Hollywood elite, the producers, are scared to piss off the audience. Because now the audience now knows how to use the tools that are available to them. You know, you go through any history and any revolution. That is the real lesson of any revolution, from the French to the Mexicans for running against, Spain, bringing down Britain, China, anything. What it is okay, there's millions of you, and there's only, a couple of the king and his, his royal guard or whatever. You could easily take them, but the bravado, and they got the shiny weapons, and so the masses think, oh, we can't do that. But dude, you outnumber them 200 to 1. Yeah. Now you don't even have to pick up a sword today or a pitchfork. Mm-hmm. Now and now everything, as you see, as you are kind of one side of what you're kind of alluding to, is that now anything can, because of the internet, anything can be weaponized. And it is. Yeah. So
they're vicious. They're evil a lot. And it's a small minority. They just got big ass mouths, and they are just, that's all they do. It's just complain. No, they complain, they bitch. Yep. Well, it's the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and it's a tiny minority of the vast minority. But people are terrified of them because of how big their friggin' mouths are. And these things they go through.
Like one thing I look at too is, like, I remember watching T2 with Brent Anderson and Scott Williams, and I think Jim was there too. And we came out of that, and remember, we didn't know at the time. We didn't know Cameron was a comic book geek too. Okay, we came out of that, and Billy, you'll understand this. We started seeing, like David Lean was great at making the background come alive. If it was a market scene, it actually looked like people, bartering at in a market. Mm-hmm. But because we don't have that many pages, everybody thinks it's a lot of pages, but it's not. Me and Jim figured it's basically averaging around 4 scenes, 20 pages, per book. So we've got to double up so much. So we could have a panel where a big scene is happening, and then its ending is in the background of the next panel as we introduce the next big scene. And sometimes we'll even triple it up. There'll be other, little tidbits from other scenes, because again, we just don't have that space. We can't do all these little beats and all these reactions. That's why we have to do the big spreads and stuff like that. Well, we were watching T2, and we were watching movies up until now. Right, Billy? We got the first page. The other side is plastic, so we can't really work on that. So we got just the right side. Okay, maybe it's a full spread, or maybe it's a couple panels as an intro into something. Maybe, right?
Okay. A little cliffhanger at the end of the first page. Right.
And then page 2 and 3. One of the things that we all looked at was, oh man, double page spread.
I still think like that.
but then remember, then what it turned into is page 4. Then we went to the page, double page spread 2 and 3, and we go, wow, we don't want to go into a double page spread of just a continuation of the setup. We want to set up into the big set scene at the end. So page 2 and 3 and the page 1 is the setup for, hey, here's a glimpse of what's going to happen. So page 4 is 2 weeks earlier, and then we chronologically, go up to the ending. And then that left us with, because we were monthly, that left us where, we really do need a cliffhanger at the end, because the kids have to wait 30 days. That's kind of long still. So that's why we had the cliffhanger. Now look at every single fucking movie. Look at every single movie. It's same thing. First 5 minutes is what? The big fight scene. And then right after that, 2 weeks earlier. And then it ends at the end. And then everybody's still in their seats because there's going to be a teaser.
Yeah, exactly.
So seeing Hollywood take our cues, that was like, I mean, they didn't know it. They weren't consciously doing it. But they were, they were giving us kudos. They were saying, "Oh wow, look at what these kids are doing," and now we got to do that too. And now everybody's doing that.
Everyone's doing it. Yep.
So it's one thing I'll say too. Also, I really love shows like this where you guys let us talk about all this real geeky stuff, all this real under the surface stuff. Because I don't know if you guys, I'm a film geek too. And there was something called the Actors Studio. I think it still is around.
Yeah,
absolutely. Remember that old guy, right?
Yeah,
the historian guy. Well, remember he would get at that table like Scorsese and De Niro, and he wouldn't ask, so when you left Marvel to join Image, wasn't that scary? Sorry, guys, I've answered that question 10 billion times. That guy knew that there was this one scene in, I don't know, Mean Streets or something, where the producers didn't want them to do something because it was going to be touchy. But De Niro and Scorsese got together and go, no, this is truth, man. This is real reality. Let's do it. And they pushed forward. And so that then guy, knowing that, and most people don't know that, I just made that up, but don't know that, he then point blank asked them. And then so you start hearing this real story from Scorsese and De Niro as an example of how they got the guts to do that, and where that idea really came from, and how real it really was. And the end result, because at the time the audience were film students, and so they got to see, wow, this is real shit.
Yeah.
Wow, you can't just pick up a camera and just, hey man, okay, pretend you got shot. It was like real heavy stuff. And so I think that is partly why now people look at film and go, whoa, that's art, man. And I think we need more and more of that in comics.
I agree.
Because there are a lot of, beyond Easter eggs, man, there's a lot of things that we couldn't do, we wanted to do, we did do. You don't know because we try to hide it in the background and stuff like that. And how we got through some stuff, like how we figured out that, Cubicore wasn't going to charge us an extra rate. All these stuff can help the next generation go forward where they don't have to reinvent the wheel. But we gotta be serious enough. We gotta pull out and extract all these tidbits that are just out there. Like, every time somebody like Uncle Neil goes away, it's like oh man, because I bumped into him a couple of times and I knew he had tons of shit to say.
Yeah.
But it's not anywhere for any of the youngins to see or hear. And be able to absorb, because that's all of us image guys did. We just absorbed anything and everything that we could when we were younger, and then when we were teenagers, and then when we got in, we absorbed even more. And to this day, we're absorbed. I mean, remember when Todd goes, "Oh yeah, I want to get into like racing cars," and we're going, "Todd, come on, we haven't even finished the second issue yet. Come on."
And
we didn't know he was getting a branding money so that he could build that toys.
Man.
Yeah. Jesus, what a great. Well, I was going to say, like, I also think that a big part is that they don't know or respect the source material, the new writers now. And, just going back to your deal with the Shootist, the whole John Wayne movie, I mean, that was a great movie. And I don't know if you know this, but Bosen actually used that loosely when he created The Hustler with Paul Newman and Jackie Gleason. Like, it was basically the same story. So with a pool, and he incorporated the Jimmy Stewart character into The Hustler, but there was no room for like Lauren Bacall. And then it went from that. Then Twilight Zone did an episode kind of like that with John Winters, where they had a game of pool, which is one of the greatest games. He ends up, spoiler alert, guys, from 1978. Like, he ends up beating, Jonathan Winters. He's like, well, great. You're the new guy now. Now you have to wait for someone to come beat you, because it's eventually going to happen. And then all these years later, the director that did Color of Money reached all the way back and brought in, Master Antonio to be the Lauren Bacall character from all the way back in The Shootist, all the way back to do the Color of Money sequel. I mean, again, like, knowing that trend and that trek of that trope, like it that means something in the movies, and all that is lost and gone away.
Well, to go back to the Hollywood thing, that is where my real fear comes in, because that is the essence of everything. You talk to almost any film director that did something that won an Oscar or is a classic in a lot of people's eyes, and almost all of them will tell you, like, I believe it's George going, watching the Battle of Britain. I don't know if you guys seen that.
Oh, I love that.
Oh yeah, I love that movie.
And then he was seeing TIE fighters. He was seeing the Empire. And so my point there is that's what creativity used to be. It used to be watching somebody doing some brilliant work and then going, but what if there's spaceships?
Yeah.
Nowadays it's, oh, I want to take that Thor character and make it somebody else, but keep everything else.
Yeah.
That's come on, that's cheating. That's doing the AI bullshit of not wanting to put in the hours.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah.
They should have been
incapable. They were incapable of doing it too.
Yeah. Well, see, that's again where it gets to where now it's. I remember another thing too, and again, it's the same thing of when like I was heavy into science fiction, so Asimov, Herbert, and all that guys, and nobody is perfect. Nobody is perfect. I don't care how great you are. Nobody is perfect. You will have a bomb. And I remember reading like a Frank Herbert and going, okay. And then I went on. Now it's, oh fuck, Herbert's fucked up now. I mean, he doesn't have it anymore. It's like, come on, if it's not your boat, then go on.
Exactly.
It doesn't have to change for you. The world isn't made for you.
Right.
That is the world pushing you to go, well, you didn't like it? Well, okay. Do Star Wars.
Yeah.
Do Jaws.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do something else. And I think that's what we're losing by listening too much to the audience, because as good as an audience member can get,
Yeah.
they only know what they like.
Yeah.
I mean, remember when Star Wars came out? Okay, this is at the tail end of from the 60s, 2001. And that was technically, accoladed, right? But it was like boring.
Yeah. Yeah.
This
100%.
is, and that was on the tail end of all these. And some of them are actually really cool, but because they're black and white, had no budget, all these B sci-fi movies. So like when George walks into the offices and go, oh, I want to do a soap opera science fiction, everybody's going, soap opera? So like Days of Our Lives in spaceships? Doesn't make sense,
Yeah. Yeah.
And I go, I'd love to take the audience today and bring them in time back to while George was trying to sell this, and them listening, because we could put them in the room to George trying to explain science fiction soap opera, and them guys going, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so my point there is, if you only know what you if you only know what you like, you can't create that new thing, because it takes somebody thinking out of the box. Mm-hmm. Because I mean, think of his other problem George had. Other than Jaws, there was no such thing as a sequel, right? So, I mean, think about this. People, I had this conversation with Phil Tan 2 days ago. Think about this, okay? In this land where nobody's going to give me money for science fiction, especially a soap opera science fiction, nobody can understand that. And how the hell are we going to convince Alec Guinness to do this stupid little kiddie show thing? Yeah. And there's no sequels. And remember, I don't know if you guys know, but Coppola challenged George to do another, because he only wanted to do documentaries. He was a documentarian. He wanted to do speed stuff, racing stuff, you know? Wow. And so he challenged him to, because he did this THX 1138 as his thesis. Yeah. And it was, again, over the top of everybody's head, 2001, right? But technically brilliant, right? So Coppola was kind of worried that he would lock himself in this little pigeonhole. And so he pushed him to say, hey, George, you can't do a real movie that a lot of people will like. And then he goes, okay, let me try that with science fiction. Again, the courage. I'm going to take a genre nobody wants. Yeah. And I'm going to try to make the audience love it.
And you know it's extraordinary too.
Wait, Bill. The last thing I'm just saying.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
And then he did the thing that I really that really gets me to how brave he was. Okay, again, in a world where only Jaws had a sequel, right? And by this time, it had the stupid sequel, right? Jaws 3D, right? Everybody's going, oh, we can't do sequels anymore. It's just shit. It's just crap. George when he meets Alan Laddie Jr., who's the only young in the producer's office that could possibly get him money and convince Alec Guinness, he goes, not only am I going to hope that there's a sequel, I'm going to fucking write this thing so that there are 9 sequels. Who the hell is going to finance that? But it was the young, dumb guy in him and challenging the whole industry, going, well, if this does well, then they're going to be forced to do 9 sequels. Yeah. And unfortunately, you be careful what you wish for. You got it.
Yeah. And what's so extraordinary too about it is that the average film in 1976, 77 to produce was $9 million, and the Star Wars was made for $7 million. They made Star Wars with $7 million. Whilce, you made more money than that in 1990, for God's sakes.
Yeah, but you also remember too that while they were filming the Tatooine scenes in some South African country, because they had the sand dunes. Okay, a sandstorm came in and wiped out the whole set.
Yeah,
and he'd already spent his money, so he had to convince Alan Laddie, as they called him, to go back to the office and get some more money to rebuild. Otherwise, the movie would have just been put on the shelf. And that's how good Laddie was. You guys, I don't know if you guys know Laddie, his dad.
So they call him Alan Laddie? He's Alan Ladd Jr., but they call him Alan.
Yeah.
That is how you
They
pronounce
called him
it.
Laddie. Hey boy, Laddie boy. Because a lot of,
Laddie.
I guess a lot of them were Irish, you know. I don't know.
Laddie.
But see, he was the youngin. Here's another thing that you know, I didn't know until I saw an interview with Spielberg, is that the reason that they were able to get together and call themselves Zoetrope is because they were the batch, I believe it was UCLA Film School. They were the batch that graduated top of the class. So they formed up together. And this was the time, as they graduated, that all of the studios changed hands. It went from the Selznick big producer guys, who were creative guys too, to money people. And so now the money people, they didn't want to go back to the old school guys and say, okay, can you help us figure out how to pick what the finance, you know, and what the produce and shoot? Yeah. No, they went to UCLA and said, hey, you young laddies, come over here. You know, we'll give you carte blanche, and, you know, let them do what they did. And that's how we got American Graffiti. That's how we got Coppola doing some other stuff. Coppola was like the big brother of the whole group. But if that didn't happen, those guys would have just been like everybody else graduating from film school, you know, trying to find someone to listen to them. But because of that, because Alan Laddie was the in-between, because his dad was royalty, the young money people would listen to Laddie. And Laddie was the only one that would talk to like Spielberg and Coppola and George Lucas. And it's kind of the same thing in comics too. You know, Carl Potts, Ralph Macchio, who would spend all his hours in the vault just reading on stuff so that he could be the person to advise on continuity. Because that's now a problem. I mean, how many issues of X-Men and Fantastic Four and Thor and stuff, it's like, nobody humanly can remember all that stuff.
Right.
And so you're going to get into trouble. So
challenge accepted.
No, there should be, in our day and time with the money and computers, it should all be databased and tagged right now.
It should,
you know, because like, I mean, like, you know, to bring it to my two issues, we had a lot of problems because of that. You know, there was a lot of things that I originally wanted to do, to put in context. I think I said it last time, where me and Jim were asked to start up this new line with the two teams, right? The two X-Men strike teams. And that was our excuse for 2 X books, right? And then the upstairs calls me and says, you know, Wolverine is the big hot person and he's on Jim's team, so you need a new one. So make up a new badass. So I make up Bishop in the middle of my first issue, 281. And you only have 4 weeks.
Yeah.
So I'm doing 2 weeks of this issue. And then in the middle, it's okay, create a character. I'll call you in 2 weeks. And I called him in 2 weeks. I'm finished now with 281. Pitch for 5 minutes over the phone. He goes, yeah, go ahead. Put him in the next issue. We still trying to pull out the original story for why there needs to be 2 books. So we have to go back and forth with the Bishop thing. So I can only put Bishop's entrance in the end of 282 and then go on. So my point is, about 3 issues later, they invited me to join Image and we decided to do it. So there's only really 3 issues of Bishop with me there. And again, I'm in California, they're in New York. So They were so pissed off. There was no phone call asking me, oh, so what did you have in mind for Bishop? What were your plans? So everything they did after that was just them making up. So we had the biggest problem we had was, again, just the continuity is just so massive. So here I am with Bishop, and Bishop has already been established, and I established in the beginning that he hates Sentinels and stuff because he grew up as a young pup mutant. Because the impetus for me was the young Conan. The mythology is Conan is born on the battlefield, which is why he fought since he was a kid. So I did that with Bishop, and so the hordes of barbarians were the Sentinels, and their power, right? Well, here I am finishing up the first issue, and somebody finally does the research, and I think it's about 10 or 12 or so years in continuity, prior to when Bishop is at the pool, the Summers Rebellion destroys all the Sentinels.
Yeah.
So now I'm going, I just drew 6 pages of Sentinels.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, you know, and I'm not complaining because that is the skill set, right, Billy? You know, we don't have time. We can't sit there and, you know, bring in people and pitch them and show them sneak things and judge their reaction. And, you know, we've got to go, okay, I need a clone character of the main character because I want him to mirror these traits in him because, you know, I don't want my main character saying, I'm badass like Wolverine, right?
Right.
You know, so we got to instantly, okay, I just need that. And then you just do it. You just get approved. You're not pitching the details of what he looks like or anything. You're just pitching every big thing, the big blocks, and the editor going, go with it. And that editor trusting you to fill the details in right. And you just do it on instinct. That's what we're paid for, right? You know, we can go into like ILM, you know, Electronic Arts. We can go into the bullpen in those places, and they are full of named art directors and lead artists that wish they were in comics.
Yeah.
But they just couldn't handle the deadline. They
Right.
just couldn't do the speed thing. They couldn't just come up. I mean, I say we could go into Hollywood, all of us artists and writers, we could go to Hollywood and we could go, all right, give us a problem with you know, Cameron's new story and why you're holding out on an investment. And in 5-10 minutes, we got the solution for them, because that's what we're built for.
Right.
That's
Exactly.
what we're paid for. We're not paid for to go, well, there was this thing I was thinking about when I was 4 years old. And, you know, I kind of developed when I was 12. And I kind of would like to sneak it into, you know. No, if you're sneaking something in, it doesn't make, it's a square peg in a round hole.
Yeah. And the thing, the funny thing is too, is that they ask you for this advice. I have friends that do that, or they, you know, and well, I don't know. I think it's more that, you know, they don't want to lose their jobs to us. We're the last people they want working. We really are. No, because we have to, you know, and because we can edit ourselves,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, that's the thing that I think that's the biggest thing we've learned is to be able to tell a story. And I leave that with us because I don't think a lot of the new people are aware of that, how to do that. I mean, remember, you know, what was it? Fantastic Four. Is it 41? What's the one from June 1966? The This Man, This Monster issue, you know, with the Ben Grimm one, and the fake thing, you know. Today that would take them 12 issues to tell that story.
Yeah.
Stan and Jack told that story in 24 pages, you know, and it's one of the most astonishing comic book stories of all time.
Yeah, and real quickly, what blows everybody's mind when they hear the story of how they wrote that story in every single story is because this is before dial-up, before internet, before cell phones. It's just your landline, right? Mm-hmm. And Stan calls up Jack and goes, hey, what about the story with Ben and blah, 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 just big blocks. And then Jack going, yeah, you know, and then we could have this happen and blah, blah, that happen. And then, yeah, cool, let's do it. Hang up the phone. Jack draws what he remembers.
Yeah.
And then Stan gets the pages and go, fuck, he didn't do that scene. But instead of bitching about it, he wrote it so that it looked like that's what they planned.
Yeah,
that is
one of the most beautiful stories. Sorry,
yeah.
51. Thank you. Yeah, Marcus, thank you, and Bruges Man, thank you. You know, it's and it's still one of my favorite comic stories of all time.
My favorite FF was when Galactus and Surfer came in. And then they had to fight with Dr. Doom. And remember, they repelled Galactus, and they were at the top of a building, and they were all exhausted. And the first one to get up was Doc. And then he goes, I could win. I could win. But what kind of a win would this be?
Yeah.
In a comic book.
Yeah.
In a comic book, man. You know, and it was because it was a comic book that Stan could do it without getting anybody's approval and no marketing test trials.
Yeah,
Stan could just think it and go, yeah, okay, let's try it.
Yeah,
if it doesn't work, we'll change it next issue.
Yeah. Mark Texiera told me the story, the whole Gwen Stacy thing, when he was reading it as a kid. And he was just like, oh my God, you know, the death of Gwen Stacy. And he was just, He was, it was the funniest thing. And it's all stuff that that we all talked, but we really didn't have anyone to talk about. Then when you all get together and you hear for the first time that, oh my God, this dude's in the Bronx, and he's going through the same shit as, someone in New Jersey is, or someone on, in California. And that's why the evenings is so fun. I mean, we're really privileged to be able to do this for a living. And
see, that's one of the things that I want to push with, like a lot of people are they've been trying for the last few decades to figure out how to get us into the digital age. I'm one of the ones that know we have to, because again, we had to follow the audience, right?
Yeah.
Here's one of the things that people forget. Well, don't understand. Everybody think it's bam, boof, bam because of Batman, TV show. A lot of people now, because they love manga, they think it's the Zipatone screens.
Mm-hmm.
They think it's, all these. It's really not the panels. It's really not the what it really is we're the only medium where me and Billy could talk for like an hour and go, oh, what about this? And, we're both military guys. So we could come up with this military idea of using this military squad to do this military thing. And we'll tech it up a bit with, some weapons and cyberpunk and blah, blah. And it's only an hour conversation. And then we go off and do it. And then we publish that first issue and people don't get this one character. So we were not going to bitch about it. Oh, we kind of like that character, but they're not responding. So let's put them to the side a little bit and introduce another character to fill in that hole. And then if the audience still doesn't like that guy, we'll try another character the next issue. Yeah. And then if they like that, oh, okay, there you go. There's our sidekick. Let's run with them. And then later on, you can tail back.
Yeah,
the original version of stuff. We're the only medium that could play like that. Every other medium, you got to spend millions. Remember, $7-9 million to find out that Nicolas Cage? Nah, I don't think so.
Yeah,
Superman, right? Yeah. We would spend 9 minutes, figuring out what to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's the only medium that can do that. We're the only one that can do it. So we're really the vanguard for the next creations, for the next level. Mm-hmm. Because again, Batman was popular, but you want a psychotic Sean Connery?
Yeah.
And you change the name to Dark Knight?
I love that.
Batman. Imagine him walking to the office today with the lawyers, right? The Hollywood lawyers going, Frank, it's Batman. Say it with me. Batman. We own the copyright. The trademark. It's millions of bucks. Okay. Forget this dark doo-doo guy. Okay. Now a lot of shit probably wouldn't fly today.
Oh, 100%. A lot of it would not fly.
Yeah.
And actually, Whilce, we got a couple of super chats that came in for you. So if you don't mind, we got one here from Evil One. Thanks for $5 super chat. Would you ever consider drawing Wetworks again? I need more of Wetworks drawn by you in my life. I got a Wetworks cardboard poster right behind me.
Well, let me put it simply like this. Again, just like the Bishop thing, there are a lot more stories that I haven't told. Because I'm a Navy brat, and I grew up on. I had 4.5 beautiful years on Midway Island. Imagine this: Midway Island is an island 2 miles by 1 mile, and then it's surrounded by coral, and then there's a teeny tiny island called Easter Island, about a couple hundred yards away. But it's within the coral reef, and that's a tiny island. That's the radar station. That's where you get, you do something wrong and piss off your officer. Boom, you're stuck on Easter Island. But for us kids, that was where the Boy Scouts went camping out. They let us use a landing craft to beach on Easter Island and get down there. So anyways,
that's
my point was the island was 2 miles by 1 mile, and only 1/8 of it was paved. For our housing, for the exchange, for the commissary, and for the runway. The rest of it was forest, restricted area. You say that to a 12-year-old? What the hell's over there? We explored everything. We found everything. You couldn't join my group until you found your own bayonet shovel. you know,
Nice.
that, you know, so like growing up like that and finding those pillboxes, finding those artillery cement, you know, installations where they would nail down the big artillery and stuff. And at the end of the runway, where we went fishing, that's where they dumped all spare parts. So there'd be like massive B-52 wheels, you know,
That's
cabin
insane.
from a ship, you know, and we'd be sitting in them fishing and stuff like that. So that sparked a lot of imagination. And I would say maybe a fourth of that I put into Wetworks, you know, from my military days. And you know, when we first did Wetworks, I was fortunate that I had a cousin who married a captain. Back in those days, because of Charlie Sheen, we started to understand the word Navy SEAL, right? Only started to. So I didn't know he was a Navy SEAL. And I would just see him at Christmas every year. And every time I would have military questions, I would talk to him because he seemed to have all of the dope.
Yeah.
And my cousin was happy because he was about to retire. He was a young pup, but you know, when you're in special forces, you know, you if you can survive a couple of years, you kind of want to make sure you survive the rest of the years, right? So I then found out, he told me one Christmas that he was going to go back. He was being called back, and he said, I think I'm gonna take it. And it was because of Bin Laden. It was Team 6. He was one of the original. There's about 300 of them. He was one of the original guys recalled back in to do that. And right before he went back in, I told him my idea about Wetworks. And he's the one who gave me the idea of splitting them into squads of 2. He said they always had backup. So you had a 2-man strike team, and then you had a 2-man strike team behind them or back behind them, and then you had artillery, which was just support of them, and then you had if you had an extra hand, which is what I gave to Dane, then you had a roamer. So that's what Dane did. He roamed the battlefield just in case a snafu, and then he could fill the hole. And I got all that from my cousin's husband, and I still know him to this day. But again, he gave me a lot of other stuff that we didn't have the time yet to put in, because you know we had. I mean, Brandon was the one who came up with Wetworks because he wanted to be a SEAL, but he blew his knee or something like that, so he couldn't do the obstacle course. And he was the one who told me, said, you know, Wetworks, and nobody knew that word. You know, and so I go, I don't know. But then when he explained it to me, I go, oh wow, because I'm a tech guy, so technically,
you're like, all right, that's pretty cool. Yeah. It's more it's a real term.
Yeah, it's a real.
Very few people knew.
And again, we were lucky that as the society figured out what that word was. Because, you know, when we first put the book out, everybody goes, oh, plumbers, you know, is this Mario Brothers? You know?
Mario Brothers with vampires.
Oh, they're sprinkler fitters.
Like, shut up, fans.
Yeah. You guys don't know anything.
See, that's the essence of Image. Because at Marvel or DC, we would be gotten a lot of pushback from upstairs. I don't know, the audience isn't getting this. And you know, especially if you're from film and science fiction novels and stuff, it takes time for an audience to figure out they want this.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, when we first saw Star Wars, we just saw the models and the monsters. You know, the Force and you know, the relationship between Luke and his dad, and then the hidden relationship with Leia, and you know, having a dog, overgrown dog and stuff. That was just, okay, kind of cool, you know, I'll go with it. Now, later on, now in our older age, we're going, oh, well, you know, the significance of that is, you know.
Yeah. Well, you know, because I remember we saw it in, school was still on.
Yeah.
So it came out, if it was May did they say it's May 4th? I don't know if it actually was released on May 4th or May 5th
Yeah.
or 3rd or whatever. But I saw it in the theaters, like because people started talking about it. So
Yeah.
then we went to go see it the weekend after or the weekend after that. And I remember I was, I don't know, 4th grade or something. So excited about it all, and it was incredible. And but my friend's brother picked us up. He's driving. He's like, "What was it about?" I'm like, "Well, they had these ships, and there's Julie, because we thought it was Juliet for when he said Chewie. He was called him Chewie, and we laughed at that. When he said, "Come on, Julie," instead of Chewie, we thought he said Julie. Is that a girl?
It's a girl. It's a girl.
And they blew up this Death Star. Yeah, he's like, "Yeah, but what's the movie about?" I'm like, I don't know. It was fucking awesome, though. We're going again next Saturday. I don't care. So,
I was lucky that my parents started taking us back to the Philippines for 1 month vacations every year, and we went there when Star Wars came out. And I'm not sure. I don't remember because I don't remember going to the movie theaters. In the U.S. when I was a kid, but in the Philippines, still at that time, they didn't kick you out. So just like in the old days, when Scorsese was a kid, you could just sit there the whole day. If mom, left you alone, you could just sit there. So the first time I saw Star Wars, I got to watch it 4 times back to back.
That's crazy.
That's awesome.
That is awesome.
That is awesome.
Yeah, I feel like though, especially too, like at that time, there's so much with technology and everything today, right? There's that, like, I feel like we're not wowed that much anymore. But like you go back then, right? And you got something like Star Wars. Like I would love to go back in time and like be able to experience that, like, just this crazy new space opera, right? That's just, like
With
nothing
fresh
else
eyes.
at the time. Yeah, with fresh eyes, seeing, and how they, did the filming of the, the models and everything for the flight. I mean, that all had to be like.
Oh, he froze.
Oh,
I was going to say, July 25th.
Am I back?
Or May 25th. May 25th.
Am I frozen still?
No, you're back.
You're back.
All right, so it's May 25th. So school was still in. So school ended probably around the 20th of June. So we probably saw it the week after it opened, unless it was. If it's that late, maybe we saw it the first Saturday it opened. I don't know, but it was
a lot of kids don't remember when THX came out. Remember when the first theaters got THX, it was like boom on 12.
Oh, when that was
now you go into a theater and it's on 5, right?
I remember seeing, and I know we're totally getting off subject and not talking about your stuff, but I remember seeing The Adventures of Superman, those opening credits.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
and how loud and bright.
Oh.
And I remember we were like, it was so bright with that, and I think they were actually. No, maybe that's the HBO thing, but I thought they were actually all the lettering was built. It wasn't just like animation. It was almost like, but I think that's just
model that they filmed?
Yeah, I think it was models, but I think I'm getting confused with the HBO. You guys would know what this is, but the old HBO.
The old HBO ad.
They built a steel or an aluminum HBO.
Yeah.
Have you
seen, I remember that. I go on YouTube. I go on YouTube. I see that stuff.
Have you seen the original Enterprise? It's massive.
I saw pictures of it,
it's
but I never.
Humongous.
It's like the size of a Honda Civic.
Yeah,
it really is. Like the length and the height.
Yeah, there's another cool story is if you read the if you have, I'm sure you have them, Whilce, the making of books of Star Wars, the ILM books and stuff, and they talk about the ships that were in the background of, say, the Armada, the Rebel Armada in Return of the Jedi, and some of them were like lighters that they painted white. They just put some things on, like they're like, oh, no one's gonna see that anyway. It's gonna be all the way back there, but they're like, combs, and you know what I mean, brush, shit like that. They cut the bristles off of a comb, and it's just like a shape. Pretty cool.
Yeah, when the first Star Trek movie came out, we fortunately, because LucasArts wanted to get back into games. They started the games way back then with 8-bit and 16 bits. There was like Indiana Jones. I used to play that all the time and stuff. That was on the Amiga. But then there was this lull, and they concentrated on the CGI for the movies. And so we got to tour ILM at the old ranch place. We got to tour ILM back in the day, and they were brushing off the Enterprise and everything.
Wow.
For the movie, so we got to we even got to see the original Death Star too, because
Skywalker
like they always say, it's just this warehouse, and it's put it over there, just put it over there,
like at Skywalker Ranch.
Yeah, see, back then almost everything was at Skywalker Ranch, but the actual ILM was an industrial building that was in the city a little bit. And it was all nondescript. It's just going to a industrial park right now. It's just those regular buildings, and you don't know what's really inside of it. So all of the models and where they blew up the models were over there. And so the ranch was out in the country in Marin, and that's why in Jedi, that's where all the Force was. It was in the back of Skywalker Ranch in the Force. That's why they were able to film it over there and not have to pay for it and stuff. Again, use what you got.
Like
it's like a coupon shopper.
Like the Endor scene?
The speed bike, the bike, the speeder.
Yeah.
Wow.
I didn't know
How about that, Blevins? Did you know that, buddy?
I did not know that.
I didn't know either.
Yeah,
the guy's like a bargain shopper for filming.
I also didn't know that Whilce got to go visit Mecca without him.
And George was great because it was a lake, and then all the buildings around it, Skywalker Sound and ILM and the design department.
It's THX Sound, right?
Yeah. And at the end of it was the big house that everybody sees. That's the ranch. That's where George's office is. That's where all the art directors are. And that's where the buffet line is. So that's where everybody eats. And unfortunately, we were just kids that, and we were just geeks. If it was now, we would have done something. Yeah. But here we are in line with everybody, and we're trying to figure out, okay, so who's Chang? Who's, and is what's her name? Kathleen here, the producer here? And we're just trying, because everybody's just a person, right? Just a regular person. And then we're all getting our metal trays, and we're going, wow, this is cool. We didn't have selfie sticks or anything, so we couldn't, get it down into history. But then we pause because I think it was like 8 people in front of us. Look, there's a guy with a beard. Shit, it's George.
He was waiting online with everybody else.
He's just standing there, not yakking away with anything. I'm pretty sure it was like, he's the big boss guy. He's constantly thinking about solutions and stuff. So don't bother George unless he talks to you.
Yeah.
He was just there. Nowadays, we would have come up
smell
with
it.
He's like, try the Jello, boys.
Yeah.
It's my favorite.
It's like, do you think he was thinking about me?
He saw you, Whilce. I know he saw you.
I know he did. Absolutely.
God, he was awesome.
Well, so we got to do a show, and we just got to go trip down memory lane. We got to, something like that, maybe a new episode series, and we just talk about that because, what an experience, that you went there.
Good story for sure.
Well, see, that's one of the things that a lot of the youngins, I jokingly call them that, don't understand about every single successful person I know, whether it's creative or business or whatever, we quote unquote to the regular person wasted our teenage years, right? Not going out, having 5 million, girlfriends, or going to all the big cool parties, becoming a cool guy on campus and stuff. We spent that time building skills. And, I'm 59 today, this year. No, I'll be 60 this year. And I got into the country when I was 2 years old. So I've been in the country for 57 years. And because I'm a creative, and Billy, you'll really understand this. We're flies on the wall. We don't just see somebody beat somebody up. We go, why the fuck did that happen? And then, if it was at school, then you might see those two people again, and so you can piece together stuff. And so even when I was a kid, I would piece stories together. And so because of that, then I extrapolated out, and that's where I got into the gangsters, the Al Capone. That's where I got into the Western, the whole Western motif. I understood because of John Ford that it's not about these asshole, toxic male, John Wayne. Remember, there was a movie where he was half Indian. There was a movie where one of his best friends was an Indian and a Mexican guy, because they saved each other when they were kids. So he wasn't the asshole, I'm just the asshole white guy. Fuck you.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't survive in the wilderness that way.
Right.
You had to learn there are some people, they just maybe happen to be an Indian or maybe happen to be Mexican, that are bad, but there's also white guys that are bad, like the politicians from the East or the bankers and stuff.
Yeah.
And so you had to attach yourself with real people that would help you out. And then you made lifelong friends. And that's what John Ford taught me. He taught me that there's this hard world out there. You got to be hard. You got to make decisions and go with it. But you can't keep your mind closed. You got to be able to expand to what you need to. I mean, if all of a sudden aliens landed, and only 1% of them understood us and wanted to help us, well, you're going to survive if you find one of those 1%.
That's right. Yeah. You brought up Al Capone, and then you brought up Westerns. And there's a story I've had kicking around, and I don't care what people said. I think I copyrighted my story. It's called Two Guns, One Heart. And it's about Al Capone's brother, who was, served in World War I, and then became a marshal out west, changed his name to, what was it, Robert Hart or Frank Hart? I think it was called Frank Hart. And he's Al Capone's brother, and he became one of the most notorious marshals, and he carried two guns with him, stuff like that. He was captured. I mean, well, his brother at the same time is the biggest mobster in Chicago in the world, and he's out there in Wyoming or I don't know, Texas or New Mexico or Arizona, something like that, or, grabbing cattle rustlers and thieves and shit like that. Pretty cool.
That is awesome.
Yeah. We haven't really dived into the really nitty gritty of what it really took to open up that blank spot on the map. The West. There's so much that was condensed down just to make it palatable, but there's so much. So, which is why, like, one idea that I had for humanity expanding into the universe and getting to like that sci-fi thing of, oh yeah, there are humans on 10,000 planets, right?
Yeah.
Is now we're stuck at being a trucker. Basically, right? Going to another planet, getting minerals and bringing them back, right?
Space truckers.
I'm thinking that all of the people that are on the fringe, if there is a, cheap spaceship that can get to another planet, everybody's going to be gone. It's going to be all of the, the mutants, right? The us nerds that are going to go out there. And then, so I'm thinking, going back to Cowboy, the West had to be tamed. Now the universe has to be tamed. So I imagine like trying to find a Wyatt Earp and giving him a lot of money to go planet to planet, and and building like a tech horse or something to get him so he can travel all around by himself, like in the old days, with his beef jerky and stuff, and him slowly placing law and order into effect. And so I thought that would be a great way to rehash some of the things, some of the tropes of the West, but to bring up a lot of the detail that hasn't been brought out yet. Because like Bill, you probably know then that, Wyatt Earp was really only the Earp brother that survived.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. He wasn't the big bad. It was his brother that was a big badass.
Virgil, the old one.
Virgil. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, he just had the luck of the Irish, right? He survived
a long time. He lived a long time too, and then he worked,
he lived into the 1900s
and stuff like that. And yeah.
There's so much of our past that, in hindsight, as a backseat driver, you could look at one way, but when you look at when you learn about the actual detail, I love history too. You know, like I'm right now discovering the reality of Rome. You know, it's easy to talk about the legions and stuff, but if you look at what Rome conquered, it was almost all of Europe and the northern part of Africa. Yeah. So they started as just a little tribe. How did they get through all that? Well, they can't do that with legions, because as any military history shows you, it's attrition. Your guys are going to die eventually. Yeah. And then pretty soon the new guys are going to come in and take over, right? So how did you do that? Well, it turns out Rome was the first socialist state. It turned out they would go into a country, invade it with their legions, and instead of sending 2 legions and having them stuck there because you gotta maintain what you've just gotten, right? They made them citizens.
Yeah.
They made them. Everybody was a Roman. So it's like, oh yeah, so we have the autonomy of our own place, but we're now Rome, and so now we can make a deal for olive oil or military support from a legion. We could, we could ask for that and stuff. And so that's why Rome really grew exponentially. And then that's why, if you remember, the big power of religion was the Jewish faith, because they were the first, and then Catholicism was a branch off of it. But the Catholic faith, imagine for those people back then, was kind of socialist too, right? It wasn't just this guy on top, and if you did something wrong, he's gonna smite you down. Yeah. No, you could be a sinner. Yes. You could repent.
Yeah.
And there's a place to go to after death, heaven. So it became a people's movement. And since Rome was a social, I'm simplifying everything. Right. But since Rome was a socialist ideal, the Senate, remember, I don't know if you guys know, the legion could not go into the city because they were afraid of a coup. And these were all foreign soldiers that were enslaved and brought into the legions. So Caesar had to walk into the Rome by himself. But the real reason why he was killed by all the senators was he had the socialist idea of, what if I grant citizenship to all my legions? Yeah. Now they can go into the city with me, and now I'm all powerful because I've got the military with me in the city. Oh, we got to kill that guy. But again, my point is, there was a lot that we don't know of Rome. There's a lot we don't know of Egypt. There's a lot we don't know of the West of America. There's a lot and once you figure it out, that's the thing that comics told you. Stan taught me. Think about it. What do we do, Billy? We write and draw stories of fantastic people that will never, ever exist. Right. We dream and want them to exist, but there's not going to be superpowers. It's never going to exist. So why and how did we go from these? We're just kids. Remember when we was bringing our checks to, everybody would laugh at us because, oh, you do that kids stuff, right? Yeah. Now they want to all tickets to San Diego Con.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. And if you meet new people and you're at a dinner or something, they're like, "What do you do?" And because did I tell you this, Niall? We were at that thing last Friday. We were in the city for Friday night. Yeah. And we had a great table, and I don't give a shit what anyone does. To be honest with you, I really don't care what anybody does. I never ask anybody what they do. But there's a lot of people that do that. Like, so what do you do? And I'm like, I make comic books. And that was it. For the next hour, I was talking, you know what I mean? Oh, do you know Stan Lee? Yeah, I knew Stan, all this, blah, blah, blah. And it's amazing because they're just fascinated by it.
The bell of the ball. Yeah, the bell of the ball, Billy.
I'll give you my theory of why that happens and its story. Because the other question you got to then ask is, okay, how did this bubblegum pop, which is how we were talked about back then, kiddie pop, right? Yeah. How did these kiddie pop stories get to the point where not only all of America, but every single country in the world, no matter how foreign it is to our culture, understands and loves superheroes? Okay. Right. Yeah. The only way that can happen is going back to my point of any real creative has spent a lot of years of his youth just watching, just trying to figure out what people are doing, why they do it, how they do it. We're figuring out how to tell stories. So we figure out there are all these small stories, or what I call universal stories, right? Your wife or your daughter gets raped. Well, no matter how passive you are, you're going to get pissed off and you're going to want revenge, right?
Yeah.
That is a universal story. Everybody from any culture can understand that.
Yeah.
Yes, it's wrong if you kill somebody else, let the, quote unquote, let the authorities do it, but anybody can understand it. So it's a universal story. So everybody can understand universal stories. So with that in mind as a context, I think I don't know if I said it here yet. I always say this. You're born and you have a heart defect. The universal story is you're going to do whatever you can to try to overcome that. Now, what if you're born a billionaire? What if you're born a tech billionaire? You're going to use your billions in your tech to try to help your heart. So what if you build a tech heart that can harden your heart and make it, everybody again can understand that. Now everybody can understand the universal story of that. Oh, now you got the state of the art tech. Oh, now we could replicate different organs, and now we could replicate a super soldier. So a lot of people are going to try to do something bad with it. Again, the universal story. So now I've got, as the tech billionaire, now I've got to protect my mechanical heart. And so what if I come up with a suit and I could put the heart in the suit? You guys know where I'm going, right?
Yeah.
And see, it's all these universal stories that build up into this something that's never happened. The more universal stories you have, the more people connect. The fewer universal stories you have, people are going to go, it's kind of interesting, but I don't get it. And so that's what we do. And that's story. And that's why the whole world can understand it. That's why one of the first superheroes, though it's technically on superhero, everybody understood Punisher.
Oh, yeah.
Mafia wipes out my family. Well, I'm going to wipe out the mafia. And I'll even die doing it. Clint Eastwood did that trope in the spaghetti westerns. He did it again in Dirty Harry. John Wayne did that a lot of times, in trying to rescue the daughter, rescue his son, Again, universal stories. And I think a lot of people aren't understanding that. They just want to do the superhero story, the fantastic story. They don't understand that you got to you got to fill it with universal, everyday human story. And that's all Stan did. He told me when The Surfer came out, it was at the end of the 60s, and he was starting to do college tours. And he was understanding that, oh, wow. Okay, let's go into history a bit. World War II, they come out of the 40s, the best generation. They get the GI Bill to help them along. Brilliant stroke of genius. Blurts out the middle class in an instant. And they get loans for housing and for cars, and they get professional treatment for jobs and stuff to build the economy. Their kids are going to be the first kids 20 years later in the 60s to go to college. Most American families, first generation was the 60s kids. And so, and you grew up as a kid knowing you were going to be that first generation. So there was a lot riding on you learning as much as you could and becoming the first geeks. So Stan went to the college and saw all these geeks. And he goes, I got to write a geek hero, Spider-Man.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Yep.
Dude, that's
the brilliance.
Let me just squeeze in this one last, because we've got such great conversation going on.
Yeah,
I've got one more super chat here that came in from Jerry Rasco.
We didn't miss any others?
No, we just got two of them.
Okay.
So far. Thanks for the $20 super chat, Jerry. Appreciate it. I was next to Whilce at my first con as a pro, and he was so generous with his time talking with me. I remember him telling me how he and Jim were inspired by Japanese fashion during the X days. Thanks for all the inspiration, Whilce.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you. Yeah, no. Well, see, that's what it is. That's a part of what I'm talking about. Okay, we've got you got to stay connected, which is my point to Jerry, because you remember Eddie Murphy? You remember Jerry Lewis? You know, Jerry Lewis in the 40s, him and Dean were making $10,000 a week doing shows back in that. I mean, that's why when he went and did the Bellboy, and he goes, I want to produce and direct and star in my first in a movie. They go, okay, because you know he could have afforded to fund it himself. So, anyways, my point is, you had all these, especially like Eddie Murphy and Richard Pryor, who grew up in quote unquote the hood. And so they had the pulse of the hood. They understood where America was at that point. The masses were. And so that's why you got Delirious, you know, all those jokes and stuff. And really cutting, really getting it because he experienced that. He lived that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of them, including Jerry Lewis, as they got famous and they became millionaires, they weren't connected to the main audience.
Yeah.
And you know, Jerry crashed and burned trying to stay relevant, but you know, I mean, as the Rat Pack was going up and finding branding, Jerry was, you know, I did that on screen, but then once the director said cut, he was like, well, you know, with his slick hair and his suits and stuff, he was, you know, I'm a real person, I'm an important person.
Yeah, and they're like, oh,
and everybody goes, no, you're Jerry Lewis. You know?
Yeah.
The only one that really, for me, and I haven't looked at all of them, but the only one that comes to mind with me that transcended that was Murphy, who went from the hood and then went, okay, I'm losing contact. I think he understood he was losing contact. He was losing material. He wasn't easily getting material. And then he goes, now what do I do? And then he goes, let me try to get into Hollywood. Let me try to get into, you know, popular movies.
Mm-hmm.
And then he found that niche that was in between where he could be. And because the Eddie Murphy today, and I'm not knocking him because, hey, he's still rich. He's still making it. But he was conscious enough to be able to make that transition.
Yeah.
He knew he couldn't do that stick that made him forever because he didn't live in the hood.
Right.
He didn't live in reality.
Yeah.
And even if he wanted to, he wouldn't be allowed to. He's Eddie Murphy. He's a superstar. Everybody would be hounding him. So there's no way he could get material.
Right.
And so again, that goes back to that. I mean, that's how I've discovered so many people. I mean, you gotta talk with everybody. You gotta keep learning about people. You gotta learn where the trends were. I mean, like Lenil is arguably my best find, and his whole real story was that he comes from an upper middle class family. Okay. But he had just graduated from high school and was going to go into college, and he was a straight A student. So Asian, you got to be a doctor or an engineer or something. And he goes, no, I want to be a comic book artist. In the beginning of summer, I just landed in the Philippines 2 months earlier, set up the studio and discovered him. And so he had that summer. If he couldn't become somebody that summer, he had to go off and be a good boy
or whatever. Yeah,
a good boy. Yeah. And so when I said jump 10 feet, he jumped. When I said 20 feet, he jumped even higher. He did everything that I did. Because, you know, Billy, you probably know, there's a lot of people out there that with talent, already known. Mm-hmm. And they go, hey, can you help me? Can you show me what I'm getting? And you go, okay, try this. And you never see him again.
No, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because same thing with San Diego. You know, I remember, and I'll just bring it. First of all, we got a bunch of great people watching. We do. And Ethan Van Sciver came on and says, Wilson, we all agree. You need a YouTube channel to talk about all this stuff because you got stories, man. You know, and you got the great RT.
We'll talk after the stream, Whilce.
Yeah, you be on our show. You should do a show. Let's start Whilce off slow. Maybe he does a show. Because having a channel is a big. I don't know if you got time for that.
I feel like it should be like a nice formal show. We can all be in leather chairs, right? And just talking history.
Well, you can ideas.
Our pipes.
Nice Chianti.
Right.
Well, you guys got me at the good age, right? Right, Billy? Who the fuck cares what everybody else
Exactly. Yeah. Well, so Whilce, you know, it's funny. I remember I was online at San Diego Comic-Con 30 years ago. This is my 30th anniversary in comics. When I first started getting a few jobs here and there, but And I went to San Diego in 93 trying to find work. And I didn't, you know, and they wanted me to change my style and stuff. I'll draw like you guys, you know, draw like you. I couldn't do that, you know. So I decided to do my own book. Wouldn't you know it, in 94, when we were there as exhibitors, there I saw a bunch of those same guys I was online with. And then same thing in 95 and 96, 97, 98, coming around, same thing. Oh, you know, how'd you do this? And I just did it. You know, I there was no plan B for me. You know, you have to want to do it. Like you said, you know, Jim, you jumped 10 feet, he jumped 10 feet. You jumped 20, he jumped 21. You know what I mean? You have to have that drive to excel and to better yourself and to be on par with your peers, because it is so competitive. And these are talented, really talented people, but you can't just come in on talent alone. There's so much more involved in it. And it's got to be that drive and that passion for it. And that's the thing with us. Like you said, you got Ethan and you got Art. You got a bunch of other guys here and gals. I'm sorry. Cabron, Sanchez, you know, Evil One. We have, you know, we all have that passion, you know, for this. And that's why we're still doing it and still having a good time, man. So here.
Now with you, you know, you mentioned, Whilce, that you have a lot of stories you still want to tell and want to do. I mean, would you look at doing your own thing?
I've actually, I've always had ideas. Everybody always has ideas. That's another crutch I want to destroy. You don't have a limited bunch of ideas, especially if you get your ideas by studying things. You know, anything can spark you off into something. I mean, the best crutch that most really great stuff are created on is watching a movie and going, yeah. Oh shit, man, they fucked it up. Let me do my version.
Yeah.
Let me, you know, and you go off on it. So having a limited amount of ideas, no, there's always ideas. And especially if you listen to what's happening today and tomorrow and the next day and the next day. Comics at its best are a response to society. I mean, Nom, of all things, with Golden was because of the times. Spider-Man was of the times. Batman was of the times. A lot of people don't know, in the context of the Batman time, and I'm taking you back to like Bogey, and I forget what he called them, and they were like the first Hollywood representation of clobbering time with Ben Grimm. Mm-hmm. They were remember there was a bunch of punks from Brooklyn or something, and they came in on a Bogey movie because Bogey was a hood guy who grew up to be a gangster. Now he's adult and he comes back to the hood, and then he meets the Brooklyn kids or whatever. Oh, I could use these kids and stuff like that. And they brought him real kids from the hood, and they became so popular they did a series of movies. Yeah. So again, you know, hitting the time.
Bowery Boys.
Bowery Boys, yeah.
Bowery Boys.
I mean, you could imagine, right, Billy, those meetings where they're pitching that. Yeah. You know, I'm going, I don't know, that's kind of touchy, and we want to build up New York, you know, we don't want to talk about Brooklyn, you know, and especially the hoods. But remember, they built that beautiful set that showed the wharf and the rich guy's mansion, and then the shops and the other. You got to take those chances. You got to take those chances and go with the times, you know, which is why I'm a little frustrated with the times today, because there's so much counter to anything else that ideas like that can't come out. Like I'll do a left turn to explain it so that we don't get people, you know, not talking to each other. That really sucks. I remember a time when oh shit.
It gives us something.
We're full of anticipation. Let's all snap together and we can get this going.
But I kind of lost my train there, but it was probably something like this, where you could do something of the times before back then, and you would get flack. You always got flack, but there'll be enough people that would go, huh, maybe,
Well, look
yeah.
at for example,
And it's hard to do today.
yeah. Well, you had Captain America punching out of Hitler, and we weren't at war with Germany.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
that's 1941. That's a good six. Was it April 41 that came out? I don't know. Whatever.
Wow,
It's
way
6 months before or more. 9 months. 7, 8, 9 months before. We were at war with Germany.
Yeah.
So that's and like I don't give a shit. And then a lot of them followed. Too.
Yeah. I remember what I was going to say, because so let's take it to remember in the 60s, there were a lot of different tropes, the grinding thing that Tarantino brought back. So let's specifically take black exploitation, right?
Mm-hmm.
There were martial arts ones, there were hood ones, and blah blah blah. Okay, it's really easy to go, okay, we're oppressed, there's this bad thing and there's this bad thing and it's real and stuff like that. And so there's the easy tendency then to do a story where we, the oppressed, are aware and we have the solutions and we can get there. And the man at the time in the 60s, that's what he was called, is just an idiot. They're just idiot trying to keep their power. Well, for that generation, they get it because they live those hardships, right? But you go another generation after, and people don't understand it, because if the man is so stupid, how come he's oppressing you? How could he oppress you? How could you not overcome them? It doesn't make sense. So then you had Spike Lee come in the 70s and 80s, and he did all those hard issue stuff, but he didn't make everybody stupid. He made everybody real. And then for his protagonists, they overcame real problems. So for another generation after that, they could see the real problems that the protagonist was facing. And then when the protagonists achieved their goals, they could see how hard they had to work for it. And it became a worthy goal to achieve. And that's how you have to write stuff. You have to really get into the remember, the real reason that Star Trek, the original 3 seasons, right, worked so well was, Roddenberry was always a political person. In fact, that whole diverse thing trope came from the 50s. If you watch a lot of the 50s, they were always diverse. The pilot commander was always American, but there were Russians and stuff like that. But he wanted to tell the Israeli-Palestinian story. He wanted to tell prejudicial stories. So remember the Frank Gorshin one, black and white?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay. He understood the power of science fiction. I could talk about Palestinian, Israeli, but I don't have to say it. So people will get it kind of later on. It'll be delayed that, oh, wait a minute, are you talking about that? And that delay is enough for you to actually think about that issue, because it sans the hard words, labels, and stuff like that. And that's the beauty of science fiction. That's the beauty of comics. We can do that. That's what Batman was. In the time of the Bowery Boys, as shown in that movie, I forget what that movie was with Humphrey Bogart, him coming back to the hood. It showed the kid, the rich kid in the family, them having hard times because crime was just so rampant. Not even the rich guy could get full protection. The kid got beat up, remember? Yeah. And then even the Bowery Boys, they get falsely accused. I didn't do anything just because, cops hate me. And, and then the cops were bad and some of them were good. They were bleeding hearts, but, and then there was, rough and tough and knows what's really happening. Humphrey Bogart, that was when he was building his brand.
Yeah.
All that is real because it feels real. So what you got to really write for is not just the moment. You got to take the moment, but you got to write so that the next generation can understand it. That's how you get longevity. And that's how we get our stories. That's why superheroes last. That's why people can understand it. Even the villains, right? Batman was the first superhero that could go against grain because crime, violence was everywhere in New York. right? Everybody, sorry for Irish, everybody hated cops, right? Everybody thought they were all on the take and stuff. Everybody
Right.
thought all of the judges were on the take. Everybody thought all the businesses, the Jews were, stealing from everybody. Nobody was safe, and so Superman couldn't work there. Superman's popular because he came earlier, but everybody's going, I don't know, Superman can handle this. We need
Right.
somebody. And so somebody goes, I don't know who it was, but somebody goes, what about a vigilante? And then everybody goes, but wait a minute, it's the times, man. People, even as hard as it is, are gonna I don't know if we could cross that line with a superhero. So how did we do it? We created the Joker. The Joker was so psychotic and bad. And then he kills Batman's parents in front of him as a kid. That's what the Joker character is. It's the epitome of evil. And that's why he was called the Joker. So I haven't seen it, and because of my comic roots, I probably won't see it, though I know it's a great movie and I love movies. The Joker movie, because the Joker movie is not what the Joker character was designed.
Right. But it is a great movie.
It's a good movie.
Yeah. Good, great filmmakers, great writers.
Completely original. It was really, really, I was really impressed. Very moving. I mean, you really felt for him. I mean, he won the Oscar for it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and he deserved.
But see, you blur then the lines, because now, remember, the reason they did it with the Joker was to justify Batman going over the line. So Batman was traumatized as a kid. He grows up. I'm going to get the Joker. I'm going to get the Joker. And then if the Joker had the same kind of a background, the lines are blurred. He can't, as a hero, go over the line. So they are yin and yang. Mm-hmm. That's what those characters. So that's a case for me, because I agree with you. I've seen interviews with those guys, and they're brilliant, and they're some of the young Turks. But they're brilliant.
This is an incredible conversation. I love
right,
it.
For that's one of the things I say. Well, then don't do the Joker. Make up your own Joker.
Yeah.
Do your own thing, because tropes are there for a reason. Most real stories, you gotta want to. That's another thing. A lot of people don't want to say anything. They want to hurt somebody's feelings, but you got to say something. The character has to go from, and the easiest way is to have them go from bad to good. That's the easiest way to do it. That's the simplest way to do it. Too many stories, I won't name them. He's good, he's okay, and he just gets better.
Yeah.
And that's not a journey. So then society then doesn't learn. Yeah, just like Christianity taught, yeah, I could have been really young and dumb and did some really screwed up things. But if I really put it down, I could maybe. No guarantees, none of this wishful manifestation. Because I put in the effort and I want to, I'm going to become better. No, you try to become better. And if society deems you crossed over, then cool. But if you don't, you got to keep striving until you get there. Forgiveness comes from the victim.
Yeah.
It doesn't come from you saying, "Oh, I'm better."
Yeah.
And if it was that easy, there would be no such thing as a victim. Everybody would forgive themselves.
Here.
Well, I think a bunch
of
work,
hard work. We're losing that. We made that. We put that in gold, America. Hard work. That's what our lone John Wayne figure is really about. There's thousands of miles of the West. It kind of looks like it's a desert, but I don't know. There might be something in there. Let's give it a shot. Oh, but I got a cousin who went there and he got his head chopped off. Yeah. And that's what we had in Tyson, right?
Yeah.
Anybody that goes out there and put a stake down there, 100 acres free.
Hey, we got another super chat in from Canadian Thought. What work among other greats of the time showed me as a young man how cool comics could be. Now spitting the truth 30 years later with the teen sensation. Epic.
It is epic. I was going to say, though, you definitely put in the work. I mean, I mean, living on Midway, you've been very public about.
And I still
how
can't
you
believe
spent
you
all
lived
your
on Midway.
Sundays. How you spent all your Sundays researching history, and obviously from all the stuff you've said tonight. I mean, you kept all that, and you definitely did your research at all those Sundays at the library. You know, like kids don't do that nowadays. Like they don't go to the library and just check on what, you know, they're all about the now and what can I get right now. And then as soon as they get it, they forget about it and move on to the next thing. Yeah. Whereas, you know, it seems the people that are successful are the people that continue to remember what we've had. I mean, the same, I want to talk about Billy Tucci. I mean, like when he did the Sergeant Rock story, I mean, it was great. Well, I'm just saying you did the research. You did the research. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I actually sometimes I have more fun doing the research.
If you look at a lot of creators and stuff, I mean, they have libraries. You know, like I mean, you know, I've got book on ancient Egypt here. I mean, like all different things of all different topics, mythology, and like there's just you have all these different things because, like you said, there's one thing that never ends. Whilce, and you said it, is the ideas. They actually come faster and move faster than we can keep up.
Yeah. And you know, the most, for me as a storyteller especially, the most important thing America has given the world is we were the first country to really understand story, right? Okay. Anything that we remember from the past, whether it's America or any other country or any other time in history, is because there was a great story. I mean, think about it. Like in today's parlance, you get the top scientists explaining quantum physics to you, and it's just gobbledygook, and you don't remember anything.
Yeah.
But you get Tyson to explain. You ask Tyson to explain, quantum physics, or Carl Sagan in the time. They tell you in a story that you can understand. Yeah. And so, like with World War II, why do we remember the Band of Brothers? Why do we remember, the Tom Hanks Spielberg movie? Because that really did happen. And just think about that. As patriarchal and as toxic as we supposedly were in the 40s, right? Mm-hmm. World War II happens. We send all of our youngins to war, 18 years old, 19 years old. We send them to war. And there's no real training. This is the second time only that people actually had to be real soldiers, right? And that's where everything was learned on the field there. If you know anything about World War II, you know the debacle of the 101 landing in Germany blindly all over the place, no GPS or anything. They had to spend the rest of the war trying to find each other, but that story of looking for Matt Damon.
Yeah. Saving Private Ryan.
The reason that sticks with us because of the story. Imagine there's a mom in the Midwest who gets a Dear John letter. Yeah. Her son died. And then she's crying. And so in the local papers, you got the story of such and such, her son died.
Yeah.
And then a little bit later, guess what? She gets a second letter because her second son died. Then she gets a third letter. And again, it's reported in the local papers. And now it's going nationwide. And then the fourth son dies. And then the papers report there's one son left. So imagine the toxic Pentagon going, what if that fifth son dies? That's going to be a bad story for us. That's going to be a bad story. People are not going to want to send their sons if this war goes beyond 4 years. There was no guarantee that it was going to end in 4 years because it was a world war. It could have gone on forever, And so imagine the thought, imagine the resources that had to be put in to get that approval to send a squad in to find that fifth brother and bring him back and make him a hero.
Yeah.
All because of a story. And that's why we remember it. If it was just told us as technical jargon, as the report that was written up, people would have probably forgotten it through the decades. But we remember it because it's a story. And that is what runs the world. That is what makes a country. I come from the Philippines, where the Philippines right now is doing good. It's climbing up, but it had 350 years being invaded by Spain and Japan, and then 100 years of my beloved blue and gold cavalry in the Philippines. We're only now getting our independence and now getting a grasp of how to control ourselves, right? So we have very little pride in ourselves because of our long, bad victim history. America understood it from the very beginning, from the very get-go. We make heroes. That's what our first reporters and journalists were about. How many cowboy movies do you go where one of the main side characters is the newspaper guy?
Yeah, sure.
And he's just there with the printing press.
Yeah.
Well, he's giving out information. He's setting stories. He's setting a standard. He's setting. Remember Walter Cronkite? I love the dude. He's one of the things I really miss. He was not perfect. Nobody ever was perfect. But when Walter Cronkite said something, he researched it. So 9 times out of 10, 90% of the times what he said, okay, I'll believe it. Even if it goes against my political, leanings, if it goes against what I think I understand of the world, Mr. Cronkite said it. So this is reality. Now we are a country that doesn't argue with each other because everybody has their own facts. And so we just do the easy thing and not talk about that.
Yeah.
Which is now fortunately we've got entertainment and stuff. So at least we could talk about that and connect that way. But we used to be a country where, I would spend in college, I spent hours wondering, why the fuck are we on Earth? What's the whole reason for all this? How far is space? Are there really aliens? And, opposing forces. But you remember one of the tropes that I loved in cowboy movies of John Wayne's. Remember, John Wayne goes into the snaggers in the saloon, and there's Mitchum. I'm taller and younger and bigger than you. And then they start jabbing at each other. And John Wayne, is slow giant to wake up. And then now fisticuffs. And then, of course, you have the scene where one of them is thrown through the saloon doors out into the mud. Right, and it's splashing, and they're boom, boom, and it goes, and then finally, and they go, let's have a cold one.
Yeah, let's have everybody a drink. Yeah,
friends after that, right?
Yep,
they're lifelong friends have, so they understand they could be their own persons.
Yeah, but we also have this now. Yeah, I get started. There's a thing now that Americans are so fragile that they don't embrace, this, they would call that toxic masculinity, but that would trickle down. Like you said, that could be two women having an argument over politics. And then, let's go. Let's have some tea now. Okay, it's dinner time. Families used to do that. Now you have these people saying, I don't associate with my family if they voted for so-and-so. It's like, really? Because we're all entitled. We're raising people to be entitled, to be babies, to be bitches, and that is not the Blevins way. I'll tell you that.
Definitely not the Blevins way.
Well, let me real quickly. Let me give you an east and west thing because, like I said earlier, I came into the country. I was 2 years old. Okay, so I was born 1963. So I guess that's 1965. Okay, and so I've been here for 57 years, and from when I was 30 on to today, I would go back to the Philippines because of the roots thing. So I learned the language, I learned my culture, I learned my history. So I now have a dual brain, my feelings, right? Dual brain. And let me see what you guys think of this. Okay, let's go back to COVID, right? Okay, and not getting into the political, but let's go back to COVID. Now, something is happening to the world. It's new. It's like War of the World. We don't know what the fuck it is. We don't know who to listen to, right? Mm-hmm. Now, you have America where even at that time, right, it was already the not the beginning, it was already the middle of, well, I've got uncles and aunts who are real assholes. Mm-hmm. And even though they're family, you remember blood used to be thicker, right? Right. Yeah. And then it became a time where, well, I'm only going to associate with my chosen few.
Yeah.
And most of us only had like about 20 chosen few. And then their their wives or their kids or their dogs or whatever, right? But it's still a small bunch. Now, the Philippines to this day is still a country where a lot of people are friends with their grade school classmates, are in contact on Instagram with their grade school classmates, with their workmates from their first job, even though they're 20 years into their career now, So we have extended families. So COVID hits. For the Philippines, everybody knows somebody who's somebody in the military, somebody in the police force, somebody who's a nurse or a doctor. And so tell me what's the real deal. And whether they're telling you the real deal, the comfort of being able to go to somebody that you know and trust, and they are a medical doctor or a politician or whatever, and can give you what you want to feel is the scoops, and therefore calm you down just a little bit, because it's a worldwide thing.
Yeah.
Now, I think that is the center of why we freaked out. Because of your 20 friends, what are the odds one of them works in government or emergency services or something? And so you've got to go to the internet.
Yeah.
And we know what a freak show the internet is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So everybody got scared and freaked out. I don't know. That's just my.
No, I hear you.
Yeah,
You
no,
know, and it's that we start. I grew up on military bases, right, Billy? Nobody locked their doors. It was like Mayberry RFD.
Yeah.
It was like To Kill a Mockingbird.
Yeah.
That goofy kid who says his dad owns the railroad. Well, there's nobody else to be friends with, right?
Yeah.
The cartoon is over and we got kicked out of the house, so we got to make do until dinner time. And so you learned about yourself, you learned about people, and you made connections. And that's the thing I'd like to embed a lot of my stories going forward with that the power of connecting, because let's take the toxic uncle. I've had a toxic uncle.
Oh yeah.
Where I go to say, hey, my best friend, her son is he home? Because we want to go out and do some stuff. And he goes, no, he's not here. And then all of a sudden she starts crying.
Oh geez.
And then she tells me the story about she just found out about her husband.
Yeah.
And then he's like lauded as the cool guy, especially back then. And then 30, 20 years later, he's ostracized by the kids who are now grown up because they know what kind of an asshole he was.
Yeah.
But that guy stayed my uncle, and I kept that guy my uncle because he was smart in other things. So when other things happened to me and I needed that comfort or needed that information or needed that help, I had that person. And in my eyes, better that toxic person than nobody, and then just being scared and having to go online and finding all the scary stuff that, as we all know, 80% of it is not even real.
Yeah.
It's just designed to make people scared.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
We're made of tougher stuff, America. I really love the best generation. They went in there as just kids, and they came out there understanding the real reality of the world.
Yeah.
But they didn't go out there and become the ugly American and force themselves on it. We didn't force ourselves. Remember, we were the only country that could go around and travel after that. The rest of the world was decimated. So we were the first tourists and stuff. There were a couple movies of quote unquote the ugly,
but if you ever go to the Normandy Cemetery and you were talking about Saving Private Ryan, and General Mark Clark wrote, and he was the commandant in charge of building our cemeteries, and he says, if ever there was any doubt that the Americans came as conquerors rather than liberators, let them look to these fields, because the only ground we ever asked for was enough to bury our gallant dead. And that's it. Yeah. That's the only thing we asked for, is if we can have a couple of acres here, a couple of acres there. You know what I mean? To bury our soldiers who fell on that soil to liberate those people. And
Billy, if I ever get you to the Philippines, in Manila, in a place called BGC, it's one of the new. I mean, it looks like Hawaii. There's a Lamborghini shop and everything there. There's every food franchise.
Well, is there a comic shop there that we could write it off and I can?
Oh yeah, the comic shop is in basically the Barnes and Nobles there. It's a massive place. But the reason I bring that up is one of those massive, beautifully meticulous lawn cemeteries is right there.
Yeah, so I'd love to.
It's right there. You're right about what he said.
Yeah.
And he got those acres and acres in the Philippines, and to this day it's kept up and has murals, and you could just go there and you feel like you're in a cemetery, a military cemetery.
It's so moving. It really is. And it brings tears to your eyes. It really does.
Yeah, which is, it's unpopular, but because I know history, I hope there's never ever one. I hate war, most military guys do, but if there ever was one, you have to have the courage to instate a draft.
Yeah, I think they should have the draft now anyway. I think that every citizen should, every male citizen should serve. If you're not good, if you're not capable of serving in the armed forces, then you sign. Then you are sent. You join the Peace Corps. But everyone should have some sort of at least 2 years of service. Was everyone, because I've seen it, like in basic training, how to my buddies, that are still, that one is an Iowa college kid, and he became best friends with a gangbanger from East LA. They're like this. It was unbelievable. So,
you remember all those old World War II movies, right? There was always Tex. There was always Oklahoma. There was, there was the Italian guy.
The Italian guy, the Jewish kid, the Mexican. Those all.
And they were thrown together into the fire, into the vat, and they came out lifelong friends.
Yeah, that's what we have still. We have our
there we go
group, and
so you gotta have skin in the game.
There
you gotta have skin in the game.
Coming soon, Billy and Whilce's in the Philippines Pop XP Travel Show. It's a historical buddy comedy.
This is incredible. Whilce, we have to do this more. I mean, right? I mean, this is one of the best shows we've ever had.
I really wanted this to happen. I was just saying, I really wanted this to happen.
What you're supposed to talk about.
Well, but now that we really dove into Whilce's mind though right now, right?
Yeah,
so with your thoughts on storytelling and everything like that, now with your latest book, the new big book that everyone's been talking about is X-Men Legends #5, and that's because we got our man right here, the badass Bishop.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about this book. Were you able to put some of your ideas into this on how you want to tell stories, or were you not able to?
It's always both, right, Billy? I mean, we are constricted by time and by our own continuity, which is one of our pillars, that there is history. History says everything. Remember that that episode of Star Trek where the big black scientist, I wish I remembered his name, beautiful actor. I've seen him in so many things. Well, remember he made the brain that could control the Enterprise, and then they had war games. The rest of the fleet tried to attack the Enterprise, but then the brain took over the Enterprise and started destroying the rest of the fleet.
Google.
And then the whole episode ended where half of the fleet was destroyed, and the Enterprise and Kirk and Spock are trying to wrestle back control, and it's about to destroy the rest of the fleet. And they hear the ultimatum from the commander on the other side, and the commander says, "Sorry, Captain, but I've been given orders to take you out." And then Kirk recognizes that voice from the Academy. It's one of his best buddies from the Academy. He even said something like, "Oh yeah, that's Decker." I think it was Decker. That's Decker. He was me. He he's as good as me. And so if you guys forgot what happened, Kirk did one of his first possum things. He shut down the Enterprise and made it go cold. And even though Decker had I think it was Decker, but even though Decker had the orders to destroy the Enterprise, he came in and he goes, it's just lying there. It's just waiting. That's something Kirk would do. Stand down, everybody.
Yeah.
And just that whole idea that it wasn't just Kirk, that there was this bigger world, that this academy that made people like Kirk and other commanders and stuff. That really brought me into, the backstory, the more. It's not just the fun, concept, which is what everybody's just talking about right now. That's what all pitch meetings are, right? They're only about selling to the investors the concept. Yeah. Okay, we'll go. Okay. Well, nobody talked about the ending. And so that's why so many movies, the ending sucks.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to kill everybody off, because what if everybody likes this and we can go into the sequel? Okay, well, if we can't kill everybody off, then how do we end it? Let's go 50-50.
Yeah, and that's why. And then no one's and you try to please everyone and you end up pleasing no one.
Yeah, no, you've got to say something. You've got to go out there, like for instance, and people have already said this, but I love spoiling people saying it's like, because I'm a Frank Herbert guy. I read just about all of the Dune books. Mm-hmm. All of those T.D. Bopper fans of Chalamet, they're going to be disappointed. He's a bad guy. He turns into the worm. That's what the whole thing was about. That ultimate power destroys ultimately.
Yeah.
He's destroying the White Knight mythology, which I grew up on. I still have the White Knight, thing in me. But that's the reason he wrote Dune. Now, but they sold it as this great epic sci-fi soap opera on steroids. Oh, but everybody's gonna die.
The spice will flow, though.
Yes,
spice
stays.
Man, I have a question.
Let's pull this up. I'm going to put this up though, so while we're chatting, people can see some of the art in the book.
But we were able to do some things. Again, it's just regular comics. I can't spend my time bitching about what we can't do. I'm hampered by continuity. Like, for instance, I'm pretty sure I could say this. I don't think Marvel will get mad at this. Is that the original idea for the M cannot be done, because continuity now has it that Bishop and his young sister were in a mutant ghetto, and in that mutant ghetto, everybody got branded with the M. Well, that's an interesting idea, but there's nowhere to take it. It's just like exactly what we just talked about. It's just the concept part, but there's nowhere it goes, right? The original concept was there were no M's anywhere. And Bishop, in the original incarnation, was going to be the commander of the pool, the prison. Mm-hmm. And the reason think about it. A powerful mutant will take the job of hunting down other powerful mutants. In one tribal sense, you're going after your own, right? But he's going, there needs to be peace between humans and mutants. And so we'll get rid of all the bad guys, all the bad mutants, because there are bad humans, and arguably the cops are taking care of, the human cops are taking care of that. So we as mutants will go after the bad mutants. And so one thing he instigates as commander of the pool is, when I grab these mutants that are bad, and they're thoroughly bad, and I can vouch because I battled them that they are bad and twisted, I will have the pool tattoo the M on them. So it's a scarlet letter, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but Bishop is still a little bit. He's reasoned it out to make himself believe it, but there's still doubt, right? Because he's still taking down people, right? His own people. And so that's why Team Omega puts the M on themselves. They did it to themselves. so that they could wake up every day, look in the mirror and say, maybe what I'm doing is wrong, but I think it's right. Let me, he was showing that he was a real person. He was human. And so the reason I did that was I always wanted to get to the point later on where he decides, oh no, I've been taking in some good people. I've been giving these marching orders, these mission capture orders, and I was told they were terrorists or something, but they were actually good people. And I know they're good people because their families are now, and we did it here, are camping out, in the surroundings of the pool, waiting for their loved ones. So they can't be all that bad. And so that's where he decides, I'm going to destroy the pool. We always had that in mind, that he was going to destroy the pool. And again, that's why the M, because after he destroys the pool and shuts it down, he doesn't get rid of the M. Why? Right? Why? To remind himself every day of the fucked up thing he did.
Yeah.
Wow. So last
and
time,
this book is beautiful, dude.
The interior is like,
it is gorgeous. It is gorgeous.
this looks better than a lot of comics I've seen on the shelves, man. You just like, this is what comic books look like,
Yeah.
Well, it's going back to something I know. I've been asked to do a lot of things through the decades and get out of retirement. But this is the only thing I knew. This is the only thing that I hadn't. Image spoiled me where, I didn't want to go, would Bishop do this? Would Bishop do that?
Right.
Is this motivation okay? No, that's not how we did comics. We don't have the time. We just think of something and do it. If it's wrong, it turns out people don't get it, then we will address it for the next issue.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only place where you could take a IP, a concept, and develop it with the fans. Everything else, a movie and everything. I originally wanted to become a movie director. I had no aspiration to be a comic book guy. Now I'm glad I took the opportunity to get into comics, because I now understand that as a movie director, no matter how talented you are, no matter what kind of a great story you have, you're spending 90% of your energies just trying to get money.
Yep.
And that's not creative. That's not
unless
fun.
you're like Tarantino, who has that freedom now to do that, to do whatever the hell he wants. Like,
yeah, but he had to bust his butt to get
he did. Yeah. Yep.
And in comics, hey, I could draw anybody, any place. I don't have to worry about budget.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about physics. I don't have to worry about anything. I could just have an idea and put it in there. And lo and behold, maybe one of these weird ideas I put in there will hit a spark for the times. And then I could take off on it. But if you don't find that spark, you're never going to take off on it. So you're never going to find your Star Wars. Yeah. You're never going to find, War of the Worlds. Remember War of the Worlds when it first came out on the radio? Everybody thought it was real.
Yeah, I thought it was crazy.
Imagine being Orson, a young 22, I think it was like 22, Orson Welles doing that and going, the power, the power of story. Look what I can do.
Yeah.
It was nuts.
It's brilliant.
Yeah, well, he was brilliant. He was.
Last time you were on the show, like 10 months ago, like we talked to you specifically, and we're like, hey, was there anything that any story you wanted to tell, or any opportunity that you missed, or that you wanted to revisit? And you actually told us specifically that you would have loved to gone back and do more with Bishop and talk about Malcolm and Randall and all this. At that time, were you already working on this, or is it just a weird coincidence that you mentioned that, and then months later you now get to do X-Men Legends? And how much of that story did you get to tell?
I think it all happened about the same time, and I was only able to put in there about 50% of it, and that 50% is really dressing. Like, there was no ever mention of the shanty shack city that would be built up from all the families of the good mutants that were wrongly ensnared into the pool. There was no room to show that there were factions within the XSE. There was no room to expand out. I was able to do a lot of those things and show you. And it might be mundane to some people, but like, here in this issue, there's a scene where they're just lounging after taking their daily morning run, and just, with energy drinks in hand, just trying to figure out what they're going to do next. Well, they are the top of the top. They are Navy SEALs. They are Spec Ops. Spec Ops get the run of the town, of the bases. Mm-hmm. They get to grow their hair long.
They get all the best equipment.
Yeah. Exactly. They get to play with the toys,
Yeah.
And so I wanted, again, with that background and understanding, I wanted to put in these little bits that they're not just out there going, where's the next bad guy to get? That's not reality. Everything is planned. Like when I was in the Philippines, when I had a studio there for 5 years, and that's where I discovered Lanil Yu and Philip Tan and them guys. I had this big, huge studio. Okay. Everybody slept in. I had a cook, a live-in maid, and everything, and it was this great commune, beautiful place, and we were just free. And once Manila found out it was free, we had dancers coming in and say, hey, there's anything we could do, any way we could fit in. Had actors come in. Is there any way we could fit in here? Bands come in. On my birthday, my exec, who I went to high school with, she goes, I need somebody to build this stage. Why? Oh, well, we want to present you with something. She was being coy. And I'm going, well, never mind. I mean, because, back then it's like, back in the day, the stage only cost me like $100, but it was a beautiful stage, right? With a big ramp. Well, I come, it's that night, my birthday party. Everybody, guests are coming in. There's movie stars and everything. There's big business people that, the sons of and daughters of them, and celebrities all over. And then all of a sudden, I notice all of the huge speakers on the stage. And then they start to bring out the mics, and they start setting up the drum set.
Oh, shoot.
The top 10 rock bands in the Philippines were there for free for me.
Wow.
And so much so that, and these were the top 10. I mean, the top dogs. And then, so that's why some of the top movie stars were there, and the sexy starlets were there. And then the even before, now everything's about boy band dance groups and girl band dance groups. Back then we already had that in the 90s in the Philippines. And so the two top bands came because one of the directors was a good friend of mine. And all of a sudden because we were in this posh neighborhood, and all of a sudden we had the cops and the local cops at our door because there were hundreds and hundreds of fans outside my gates.
That's awesome, dude. That's awesome.
That is so cool.
It's crazy.
I wish we had the digital cameras that we had back then, because everything that Wizard was boasting about, that was the Philippines. Because bringing in comics to the Philippines, they were subjected to 14% tariff because it's an outside import. And so comics were marked up 20-25%.
Oh, wow.
So only the rich kids could get. They were selling 25,000 X-Men a month.
Wow.
That's how big the rich market was.
Wow.
So that's why businessmen, movie stars, entertainers were my fans, because they were the only ones that could afford it.
That's awesome.
And so they brought their fans. And so that's why I went there, Billy. I went there for 2 months.
Yeah.
I went there for 2 months. I stayed for 5 years.
Wow.
What was the name of of your studio?
Yeah, it was called Balete 55, because 55 was the street number. Balete was the street. Balete is famous in the Philippines. So imagine a high-end subdivision where my neighbors across the street are the people that own I think at the time they owned the phone company and the electric company or something. So their compound, they call them compounds, not mansions, call them compounds, was basically like 4 or 5 acres.
Wow.
And 10-foot stone wall built around the whole thing. Okay, so high-end streets in between, zigzagging through, right? Well, the street I was on was Bolete. That's the ghost lady street. The Philippines has its own white ghost lady. You get into a taxi or a car on Bolete, a taxi stops there, you flag it down, you get in at night, and you got to keep looking in the mirror because you're going to look one time and there's going to be a white lady there.
Oh, shut up.
Dude, be quiet.
And so, again, get to that. This is a real quick.
Is the Philippine lore deep? Like, with their lore?
Oh, man. We've got so
We got to do another show. We got to do a show on it.
Yes, Will, oh my God.
My wife.
15 spin-offs from this show.
Okay. Feng Shui has a deeper meaning in the Philippines. Okay. In the Philippines is one of the Asian companies that has the third eye. That means you could, like in Sixth Sense, you could see creatures and souls, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So one of my wife's best friends is that person, right? Now, here's another story I want to tell. Okay. All those people, because we thought, superstition. Oh, those guys are just, basically sales people, right? Well, they are hired by tons of businessmen and given phones and pagers and cars and apartments and other things. Why? Because it's the millionaire's birthday. Should I go out or should I stay in? Should I have my birthday party over there or over here? And so they are paid and kept up like, a beautiful woman, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
And so they become important in the culture. And so this guy's my wife's best friend. And so at the end of every month, we have seance night.
Oh, no.
Oh, cool.
Okay.
No.
And so every minute he comes in, and then celebrities and other people come in to ask Ricky a question and connect. I won't tell you our story yet. I'll leave that for another day. But the point I'm bringing up is that he then goes, there are some souls here on the grounds, because we had 1 hectare, 1,000 square meters, right?
Dang, a hectare.
Big place, right? And so I'm going, it's my 6th month there, and I still haven't learned the language and gotten deep into the culture. And I'm going, well, I love her, so I'll go along with it, And then the next week, on the weekend, she brings in this priest. And this priest with the holy water, if you're Catholic, you can imagine the deal.
Yeah,
he's going around, and leading, the holy water scepter thing, is like a divining rod.
Burning sage.
He came in with a Super Soaker 50 when it came out, and he's just spraying everything.
Yeah. So he finds, I think it was 8 different spirit spots, right? And then I'm just going along with it, because, hey, I understand religion, the beginnings of religion stuff, where people need answers to deep questions. They need comfort, and that's what religion at its base does, at least for me. But then he said, we went to this one far corner, and it was the big garden part, and it was so overgrown because it's tropical island. And so I never went there because I'm scared of snakes and cockroaches and spiders, right? And he goes to the very corner and he says, there's a child soul here. And then he goes, to prove it, look. And we move the grass and there's a little wooden cross.
What?
No.
And then he goes, he's like all the movies, right? He's really vague, right? He goes,
gotta chill.
This is number 13. 13 of a family. And then so I'm really close with the owners because they're some of the big surgeons of the Philippines and they're very rich and really cool. And so I'm invited to dinner, and then I ask them what they know of the history of the place because they built this place. And they go, I don't know, but I've been creeped out a couple times, blah blah, just vague everyday stuff.
Yeah.
And then they go, the only thing I can think about is the tenants before you guys. You know, and it's one of those countries where you've got to put a whole year down payment. You got to rent, you got to lease for a whole year. Okay. And so, yeah, the people before you, they were missionaries. Oh, really? Yeah. They had a big family. They had, if I count it right, they had 12 kids.
Wow.
Remember, he said 13.
Oh no.
And then my exec remembers. That's right. I was there. She said she was there when she moved us in. I wasn't there the first day, and they were still moving out. And she said she counted 12, but they were talking about 13 kids.
Wow.
And I'm going,
creepy.
That's creepy. That's creepy.
So I think I believe a little bit now. You know,
Yeah.
there's just and for the creative side, this I started then talking to this guy, and I've always wanted to see the Sixth Sense sequel, and the sequel to me would be about learning about that world, right? We got a glimpse of what the kids could see in that world, right?
Yeah.
But we never then got an explanation because he was learning himself. So I wanted the next one. He now understands that world more. There's still some secrets, and this is one thing that guy told me, which has sparked my creative juices. He says, when I look around at people, what I call it is aura. I see a little halo around people, and it's just energy, just flows. But then he said, and that you hear that other places. But the interesting thing, he said, there's different colors to it, and the colors say what's happening. So he says there's a color when a person is doing really well and healthy. There's a color when a person is gonna die in 6 months. There's a color where something is gonna happen. There's a different color for everything. So I thought, wow, imagine using that there's a guy that can see everything. And then I extrapolated that out, and I haven't done the story yet. My Professor X in that world, he's one of those feng shui guys. And the other thing that he can see is the mutant gene about to come out.
Dude,
No
this
way.
is great.
That's awesome.
So he goes out there trying to find the X-Men, basically.
Oh, that's cool.
Dude, that
So
is
that
awesome.
puts in kind of more organic sense, Professor X. And it's not technical. But then he can use tech. He can have a forge and stuff like that. But that it comes from himself, that's cool. Because then I could I could really go into Jean Grey and really bring in the astral plane, but give it different meanings. Give it a 7 levels of hell kind of, feel, understanding and stuff. Because now I have somebody and a concrete way to explain that. Again, story. I have a concrete story that anybody beyond Cerebro works, but it's still a technical thing. So how does Cerebro work? It's still kind of mumbo jumbo explaining it. But if you explain that, there are some people that can see souls and see that there's a ghost standing right next to you. We kind of have taken that already in. Well, what if you can also see that guy is going to become Superman? That guy is going to be. It just puts it in a different space.
Very cool, man. That's really cool.
Dude, holy shit.
Yeah.
This is great.
Well, hey, man. Whilce, thanks so much for hanging out with us.
Whilce, would you please come on? I got ideas. We got to talk for shows, just for doing this, man. I mean, this is great. And I want to be drinking wine when we do it too.
Did you want to show off his Punisher from the Snap game?
Yeah, show that quick. While we got
it up real quick. Hold on, it takes a second for it to come up, just so we could do it. And
so you like the game, huh? I haven't played it yet.
Oh man, the game's amazing because, like I said, it's not a game that you have to. It's not a pay to win game, which I think is great because most of these mobile games are definitely pay to win. But there's not a power creep, like they have a very level top to it. Here, let me share my screen.
Ooh,
there you go.
I hear the music.
Yeah, so these are all the cards that are involved. Here's Whilce's Nightcrawler that he did, and you can see how it's popped out of the screen, which is really nice. This is
multiplane
3D. Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. But then you have this was actually done by Richard Kincaid. I don't know why they didn't get you to do it, but this guy, you can see the animation is taking effect. You can see his hair flowing and stuff. But this is the Punisher, which is just incredible.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. And then he also did where's Namor?
I feel like we're like the music reminds like we're in an elevator.
Yeah, sorry. But here's Namor. You see the sharks in the background.
Look at that.
Yeah, with all the water splashing. This is
that's Namor.
That's
that's really Namor. And what's crazy
now,
is when you upgrade the cards, like see this is a base card. When you upgrade and use it, it makes it 3D. See how it goes into 3D? That's how the things work for. Oops, sorry.
You know, see that's another. I'm glad they got us all to do stuff, because that's another thing that we bring in and makes us distinct from other product, is that we can. I mean, I'll give you a weird example. What if, you know, Stan told us to create people made out of strawberries? Okay, just a really silly thing, right? You know, Billy and I would be thinking, okay, so what's the pulp inside strawberries? Okay, so it needs an anchor point if it's going to be cut. We're going to make that muscle. So there are no bones, but there are stems. So maybe we could have them attached to that. And so maybe what if we had big, like massive strawberries and they had massive branches? So now we have massive, big colossus guy. You know, creatives and could not only think about that, but as artists, we could take it and run with that, right? Mm-hmm. How many times when we were working, you know, stuck with Marvel in the beginning, where we were given something that was, this is kind of lame, it's kind of weird, but okay, let me take it 20 steps further. And then all of a sudden, you know, people want it and stuff. You can't do that in any other medium because it costs money to go 20 steps further. But we can just go 20 steps further. I mean, that's why like this whole, I don't want to get into it because it's a long drawn thing, but that's why this AI art thing is not going to work, because it's basically photo bashing. You know, the AI doesn't actually learn how to draw. And because it doesn't actually learn how to draw, it doesn't actually think beyond what is there already, beyond what is already being explored. Mm-hmm. So it can't come up with, I mean, if you give it, you know, strawberry people, it'll bring up strawberries, it'll bring up people, and then it'll just try to blend it in. It won't think about composition. It won't think about density. It won't think about, you know, how to bring this to life, or, you know, so it won't think out of the box that way. It'll help us with layout and other things. You know, I'm old enough to know, again, like I said, my first computer was in the very beginning of my career in the late 80s. This always happens when a new tool comes in. Yeah. Everybody forgets it's a tool. Yeah. It's a tool. Everybody thinks, like, remember when tablets, the Cintiqs came in? Everybody thought, oh yeah, if I buy a Cintiq, I could become a better artist. Yeah. No, if you're not a good artist,
it's another tool. It's another wrench in your toolbox.
Your tool. You know,
I was one of those people.
It's great that in Snap they're bringing us back out in the fore. Because I remember when I was applying to become a comic book artist, when Jack was doing, you know, 4 books a month, and Neil was doing just about every cover for DC there ever was, you know, I still, like everybody else, thought that. I don't know. Do computers do this? I mean, do people actually draw this? You know,
they were machines. I'll tell you that they were, and you know,
and now that there are computers.
Yeah. Well, listen, we have to have you on again to do, and we should really do that and talk about the AI, because it's so much controversy about it. There's so much we could talk about it. And but I don't know. I got to tell you, Whilce, we have you on almost 3 hours now. we told you we'd have you for a half hour.
The greatest hours.
I was like, it'll be like 35, 40 minutes. Don't worry. I got to tell you, it's the fastest.
I'm going to rewatch this, because you are one of the most fascinating people, and I've had the privilege of hanging out with you and tabling next to you and stuff. but this takes us a whole new level, man. This is just it's really a privilege to have you on with us, and thank you for this.
Well, again, it takes two to tango. I mean, we've touched about it a little bit. People aren't that open anymore.
Yeah.
And you both sides have to be open. You don't have to believe and think the same. I'm pretty sure there are a lot of things that we'll disagree on, but I now know after these two conversations, we'll be able to discuss it.
Yeah, sure.
Absolutely.
Right.
We won't get to fisticuffs, which is the most stupidest things in the world, because every scientist knows we don't know shit.
Yeah,
but we're trying to find it out.
Yes.
We're trying to find it out.
Yeah.
At least give us that,
Yeah.
Yep. And a real one will tell you so.
Yeah.
So
well, everyone.
Yeah, Bill, anytime, guys, anytime. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Oh no, we're gonna really take you up on that.
Oh yeah. Well, hey everyone.
Great.
Thanks so much for tuning in tonight. It's been so awesome hanging out with Whilce. If you guys are interested, you can get X-Men Legends #5 at your local comic shops. You can order online. You get them at Amazon. You get, I believe, there's digital copies you can download. Comixology. It's out there. I've personally read it. I read it the day it came out. Absolutely fantastic. The art will blow you away, especially if you get that floppy and actually open it. The whole X-Men Legends, the X-Men Legends series alone is great. When it first came out, just so you know, Pop XP's own Roy Thomas wrote the first two issues. Now we have Whilce on. It's kind of cool to see how they're doing this series. So if you can, check them all out, support it. And hey, Whilce, where can the viewers? I'm pretty much everyone's familiar with you, but where can they follow you? What social media platforms are you on?
I'm on Facebook and Instagram. I'm also on Twitter, but I've never been able to figure out Twitter. I still haven't been able to. I'll see some quotes sometimes, and I want to respond to it, but I can't figure out how to get to the actual what started the conversation.
You're not missing anything. Stick with Instagram.
Yeah. You just use it to
post. My name. Just my name.
All right,
well, thank you, my friend. You're wonderful.
So great.
What a great show, guys. And man, we can't wait to have you back on again. Thank you so much.
Definitely. Yeah, hang backstage for a minute as we close out, just so we can thank you, for coming on. And everyone, thanks again so much. We'll see you all next week. We've got some great shows lined up. You'll start seeing those promos going out. Everyone have a safe, happy, fun weekend. Have fun. Read comics. Back campaigns. And follow Whilce on social media. You'll learn something.
It's true.
Rock and roll. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Thank you, Will. Everyone.
Whilce. Sorry, Will. Thank you, Whilce.
It's because your son. It's
sounds like I've known you for almost 30 years.
Yeah. Have a good one, everyone. The chat rocked tonight. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, everyone. Thank you for joining us on Pop XP. If you haven't already, make sure to click that subscribe button and also click the bell for notifications when we go live and we upload some awesome new content. Also, don't forget to head on over to Twitter and follow us at the Pop XP and over on Instagram at the Pop XP. Thanks again, everyone, and we'll see you soon.